Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Juubi Naruto and Akame got kill. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by ERAGONL0V and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Hello there, a blonde man came up and greeted the tournament's registry desk clerk. Is this where I put my name down to kick all those other guys' asses? Not anymore, the gruff man grunted. He continued gathering his materials and informed the stranger, tournament's full now and registration ended half an hour ago. Too late and bad luck. The man's lone visible blue eye blinked in shock. I'm too late. He thought. He then asked, you're certain there's no way to get me in? The register's beady black eyes scanned down to the man's fat coin purse on his hip and flashed with greed. The small toad-like man offered him, well, there might be one way. The blonde's lone visible eye nearly rolled in exasperation as he recalled, of course. This is the capital after all. Honest destroyed what little honor was left when he took over 9 years ago. He then leaned onto the desk with one arm and his voice took the tone he'd used far too many times for him to bother counting. Why, a hard-working man like yourself must have a family at home to feed, yes? I do, indeed, the other man nodded, attempting and failing miserably at trying to sound innocent. And on my meager government salary it's so hard to keep the wife happy and the kids fed. I find women are generally like that, the blue-eyed, hooded man nodded as if he were a companion understanding another's plight. It's why I decided against ever settling down in the first place. Too much nagging for my tastes. My dear Scarlet does complain, but with good reason at times, the greedy little fucker returned. But if there were, perhaps, a generous soul willing to help a poor man out by sparing a little spare money, why then I might just feel indebted to them and be willing to help them out for whatever they wanted. Yeah, right, the man mentally snarked but didn't allow any outward signs to show his thoughts to the other man. Would you? A voice the hooded man immediately recognized for he could never forget it no matter how much he tried. Do you have the roster ready for me yet? Both the greedy little man and the stranger turned towards the newest voice. Esdeath, the man thought to himself with his chest hurting. It took all of his willpower to not reach underneath his lengthy bangs to touch his scar. Why yes, Lady Esdeath, the register stuttered out in copious amounts of fear. It's right here. He squeaked and shakily held out a sheet of paper to the beautiful general. It's about time, she sneered at the pathetic, sweating man. The aquamarine-haired woman turned towards him and asked, are you a competitor? No, Lady Esdeath, the small man answered quickly before the stranger could. This ruffian was attempting to bribe his way into your competition. One of the beauty's eyebrows arched in curiosity at him and she asked simply, why? Why, to impress the greatest in the land, General Esdeath, the blonde told her while bowing respectfully in order to hide his face. He then continued with his voice staying altered with practiced ease, tales of your beauty and strength leave a lowly traveler like myself in awe of your very presence. Why would I not wish to impress someone as graceful as you? Flattery. How crude, Esdeath snorted in derision. She then offered him with a vicious grin, if you're so eager to earn favor, then why not do so directly? Oh, I could never hope to defeat you, General Esdeath, he backpedaled quickly and held his hands out in surrender, coincidentally blocking her direct line of sight to his face. Surely I wouldn't even be able to amount to much of a challenge to you, the strongest woman in all of the empire. She frowned in dissatisfaction, You're most likely correct. The woman then looked at the roster in her hand and informed him, the contest's contestant block has reached its limit and that means that no other may compete unless another withdraws. You'll need to show up sooner next time if you wish to fight in something like this. Of course, he nodded low, a few strands of his blonde locks falling out of his shadowed face and into the sunlight. Something feels odd though, Esdeath commented idly as she began to walk away. She suddenly stopped and queried without turning, have I ever met you on the battlefield before? If we had, then why would I still be alive? The stranger wryly grinned from beneath his hood. The woman's lips twitched upwards and she agreed, indeed. She then took her leave and disappeared behind a doorway and up the stairs to her seat. The hooded man ignored the shivering man behind the makeshift desk and began to walk towards the tournament stands. If I can't partake, then I might as well see if there's anyone worth fighting out here anymore aside from Esdeath and Buto, he thought to himself while he walked slowly. He traveled around the arena until he was sitting directly opposite the VIP spectators box where Esdeath and one other sat. Not seeing any open seats, he decided to simply stand atop the stands and observe the soon-to-come bouts. After scanning the crowd of participants and finding precious little to impress him, his cerulean gaze went back towards the aquamarine-haired full-grown woman and her company, an orange-haired young woman with a dog-like thing on a leash bouncing around the box. That must be the Seryu, he calculated calmly. If rumors be true, then that dog is her Tegu, and she took on 2 members of Night Raid at once, and she even managed to kill one. As expected of you, Esdeath, the man grinned knowingly. Only the best around you. Not fearing his possible discovery in the slightest, he reached one of his tanned hands up and pulled his dark hood back, revealing his face to the Imperial world once more. The man had long, spiky blonde hair that grew long over the left side of his face, covering an extended diagonal scar that a gust of wind flashed glimpses of. His bright, cerulean eyes shone with a mixture of mischief and jaded intelligence, the type one could only receive from the full mixture of experiences he'd had in his years on this world. A thin layer of facial makeup, nigh undetectable unless you knew it was there beforehand, covered his 6 whisker-like birthmarks, which prevented anyone from recognizing him from his long-defunct wanted posters. "Excuse me," a small voice tore his gaze from the general across the way and down to a small girl and her younger brother. "Do you mind if my brother and I stand here with you, mister?" The disguised former fugitive smiled kindly to the pair and nodded, "It's not a problem, little ones. What's your names?" The brother, who could not have been older than 5 at the most, ducked behind his cloak quickly and the girl responded, "I'm Jenny and he's Lenny." Not even looking away or losing his congenial smile, the man gripped the boy's arm before it could reach his coin purse. He then grabbed the stunned girl and scolded them both while holding the 2 siblings off of the ground and in front of him. Now, if you're going to try and pickpocket someone, you should do a better job of scouting your targets out, Jenny. For instance," he put them down and nodded his head towards a drunken noble whose guards weren't paying attention at all, "take Al Fatso over there. He wouldn't miss a few hundred pieces of gold." The brown-haired boy stopped his squirming in his hand and looked at the man in awe. "Really?" Lenny asked. "My Nissan and I never get that much." "Really?" the man told him with a confident nod. He let the pair down and began to instruct again. "Now, the art of being a good pickpocket is teamwork in you guys' case. Usually, one should distract while the other sneaks in and grabs the loot. Lucky for you, though," he grinned, "I'm already on that." It was right then that a patron of the arena suddenly shot straight up from his seat right in front of the nobles and accidentally sent his drink flying directly into the fat man's red face. The large excuse for a man sputtered indignantly at being forced to experience such a disgrace and immediately called for the man's head as penance. His guards were immediately in action and chased the seemingly terrified man out of the stadium and back into the city. While everyone's eyes were transfixed on the scene as it played out, an unseen young female snuck up the stairs and came to meet with the odd trio standing atop the crowd. "Here you go, boss," the teenage girl greeted and tossed the man a fat purse that jingled with all its gold. Fat ass didn't even feel it, he was so pissed off. "Good work," he grinned at her. The man looked down at the shocked pair of siblings and told them, "You see? That's how it's done." "But that man's gonna die." The girl protested vehemently. "Nah," the man dismissed her concerns with a lazy swipe of his hand. "He's a little like me. He'll get away just fine. I know him pretty well." "I'll say," the accomplice mumbled under her breath but wasn't unheard by the man. "A little like me," he says. The blonde man opened the stolen purse and let out a low whistle, impressed once he saw the fruits of his rather easy labor firsthand. "Gotta be at least 300 in here," he noted. He then reached in, removed a handful of coins as a finder's fee, tied it back up and gave the velvet purse to the sister. "Take care and hide all of this, okay? Only use it to buy food for yourselves. Never carry more than you need. People will be on the lookout for little kids like you carrying around this kind of cash. It should keep you both fed for a few years if you're careful and don't let anyone know. Got all that?" he asked with a serious look. The girl gave him a steely nod once she shook her head of her awestruck look and replied, "I do, and we'll be careful. Lenny and me only got each other. We don't trust nobody here. Mommy and daddy did, and now they're gone for good. I won't lose Lenny too." A soft smile coated the man's features and he told her, "You're a good sister, Jenny. Take good care of your little brother." He ruffled her hair affectionately. "I will." She chirped with a bright smile and a nod. Jenny then turned and began to leave, but stopped when she realized that her brother wasn't following like he was supposed to. "Lenny, let's go." Lenny ignored her and just stared up at the tall man's half-hidden face. After another moment he finally asked, "What's your name, mister? You know ours, so isn't it fair if we know yours?" The teenaged woman present looked at the boss with a sharp look, but that proved to be entirely useless when he told the boy, "You can call me Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki." "Naruto," the boy tried out the name. He cheekily grinned up at him and informed the man, "You've got a funny name, mister." Yes, I know," Naruto chuckled. "Blame my mother." He then gently pushed the boy towards his sibling and reiterated, "You help your sister out now too. Don't let her just take care of you, you help take care of her, you got that?" The pair of small children thanked him and then took their leave from the stadium right as the first round of the tournament came to a close. The girl who'd brought up the gold glared at him and berated his decision. You really shouldn't have told them our real name, boss. That's not for you to decide, the blonde man reminded her sharply. He then shrugged uncaringly and responded, besides, it was only a matter of time before news that I'm still kicking gets around. Though nobody knows me as Uzumaki. You know full well that she will put it all together though, the woman reminded him. We got off easy when she didn't recognize you earlier, but we won't be so lucky next time. And here I thought my clones were supposed to be on my side, Naruto whined rhetorically. Tell me, did it ever click inside your thick noggin that she no doubt already suspects? Hell, she's probably known I didn't actually die 2 years ago. He quickly cut off the woman before she could attempt to protest again. Look, it's my choice who I tell, not yours. Just tell me what all you found out since the last check-in. The woman crossed her arms in a huff before saying, not much more. Kurum is a Yiger for certain, that much we confirmed with our own eyes this time. Akame, though, is much harder to locate. She definitely learned well. Naruto pulled out a wanted poster and his lone visible eye softened as the image of a dark-haired teenage woman greeted him. Yeah, he agreed wistfully, a mixture of pride and affection welling up inside his chest. He rolled a piece of parchment back up and put it away while saying, yeah, she did. But I can't help but wonder about this night raid group I keep hearing about. Even Nagenda's in it if the wanted posters are anything to go by. She's the leader, according to the guardsman, the girl corrected, making the man blink in shock. She then further explained, Night Raid, as they're called, is a group of assassins whom target the wealthy and important imperial personnel. Translation. They kill the corrupt and the trash in the capital, the blonde man concluded. Anything else? Yes. They apparently have close ties with the Revolutionary Army. I figured that, he deadpanned back. You know, what with Nagenda supposedly being the leader and all. Then there's not much else as of yet, she shrugged back. Well, nothing concrete at least. Some rumors have night raids numbers as large as 20, while others have it as low as 5. Personally, I think it's around 8. A good estimate, the man nodded sagely. I'd heard that each of these assassins carry a Tigu, so 10 would be the absolute limit. You don't want to risk losing all the Tigu at once if their base should ever be pinpointed. Anything else worth mentioning? Nothing at all, the young woman answered him. Any new orders? Get more info on the rest of these Yigers first, he ordered after a minute of thought. If Nagenda's really the leader of this night raid, then we'll be lucky to find anything else on them without first encountering one of their members. Roger, the transformed clone saluted in acceptance and then disappeared with a breeze. The blonde man shook his head and murmured, I really do have too big of an ego for my own good. Really? Right here. Right in plain sight. Whereas Death can't see it. His half-covered face then rose and found the startlingly blue eyes of the beautiful general staring directly at him, as though she were calculating his risk potential and determining if he would be a worthy opponent to break. The blonde gave her his trademark cheeky grin and returned to watching the tournament below, which had somehow made it all the way to the final match in the meantime. Damn, that was fast, he noted absently. So who's left? He wondered as he looked down into the ring. Let's see, a disgraced martial arts master and some blacksmith apprentice. He chuckled in amusement and idly commented, well, that's a cover story if I've ever seen one. No simple apprentice would make it all the way to this thing's finals, and I can tell from the look in his eyes that he's much more than he seems. That kid's a warrior, and you're a fool if you don't believe it. Listening to the announcement of the competitors, the kid's name was Tatsumi. The young man seemed to be in his late teens, around the age Akame should be by Naruto's estimate, and stood at just above an average height. The boy's frame was lean and muscular, which spoke of serious training in the art of the blade, and his stance spoke of complete and absolute confidence in the face of his undaunted opponent. However, it was the look in his bright green eyes that gave the experienced warrior in the stands his certainty of Tatsumi's coming victory. Tatsumi's eyes were hardened through heart-wrenching agony and revealed to anyone who could see it that his pain had only solidified his determination. Those cold eyes made the blonde man grin and begin to respect the kid's potential. I know how it feels, Naruto mentally communicated, to lose someone you care about. His gaze panned across the arena and he finished aloud, I know that pain more than you could ever know, kid. Naruto then leaned back against the railing and watched as the final tournament bout played out. He couldn't help but viciously grin while Tatsumi easily dodged his arrogant foe's blows and lulled the disgraced master into complacency. It was after a few minutes then that, in the blink of an eye, the monstrous opponent was sent careening across the arena and crashed into the wall, unmoving upon the ground. I like this guy already, the blonde thought out loud with a feral smile. After this whole thing's over, I'm gonna ask for a spar. He's got a Tigu, I can just feel it in my gut. I wonder which one though. The boy below had a happy grin on his face as the entire attending audience applauded his great, seemingly unexpected victory. However, both he and Naruto froze solid when they saw Esdeath herself walking down from her box towards the arena, and the entire building went as quiet as death the second her booted heel struck the concrete ring. She slowly strutted across the battleground, making Naruto extremely curious as to why she would do such an out-of-character thing. It's not like her at all to personally congratulate someone not under her command. Does she intend to demand him to enlist under her? However, instead of the expected congratulations, Esdeath pulled a collar out from her general's coat and put it over Tatsumi's neck before anyone could react. "You're mine," she declared simply, and then dragged the boy off with red staining her cheeks. Naruto's face faulted onto the ground and angrily thought, what the hell? I try for 3 goddamn years and don't ever get her to admit her feelings, yet he just has to win a single fucking tourney she decides to throw. Ugh. It's too unfair. Why does he have to get her? I know. Another angry voice shouted out in agreement from within the arena's stands. Why does Tatsumi always get the girls? Oh, shut up, Lubbock. A woman's yell rang out, followed by a cry of pain. Ow. What the hell was that for, Leon? For being an imbecile. We've got more important issues to be worrying about. What could possibly be more important than this? Naruto screamed. Leon then shouted back at him, you shut it too, whoever you are. All you're gonna do is just make it worse. Another round, barkeep. Naruto called from his stool. Coming right up, the gray-haired man replied from the other side of the bar. He then poured another glass of the amber ale and told his patron, this is your 4th one. You sure you're alright? This bit here is a pretty stout one, most only make it through 2 before they get pissed drunk. I'm fine, the scarred blonde assured him, not sounding inebriated in the slightest. It takes a lot to get me buzzing, and I'm nowhere near close just yet. The bar's owner shrugged in acceptance of his odd logic and added, okay. It's your funeral though, and that'd be another solid for the glass. The haggard-looking man frowned at his glass and furrowed his brows in thought for a moment before reaching into his coin purse and pulling out a handful of gold coins. Give me 6 more after I finish that one, he grunted and followed that up by chugging down his mug of ale. The older fellow seemed to be conflicted with himself after hearing the new proposition, but he eventually just shrugged and took the gold off the bar. He collected a few clean glasses from in front of his apparently not poor customer and went to his barrel of special ale in the back to refill them all. Sounds like someone's having a party over here. A feminine voice Naruto recognized from the day before came from behind him. The voice's owner took the vacant stool on his left and asked with a big toothy grin, mind if I bum one off of ya, stranger? The old guy's amber specialty is probably the best this side of the capital, and I left my purse back home. The man turned his head towards the woman and, after a minute, nodded to her. I could use a drinking partner, he answered. Drinking alone is never fun after all. The blonde young woman sprouted a happy grin and greeted, name's Leon, oh generous one. What's yours? The woman's cheerful personality caused Naruto's lips to twitch and he told her, Naruto. Leon was a buxom, fully grown young woman who by his estimate was no younger than her early 20s. She had short blonde hair with 2 lengthy bangs which framed either side of her smiling face and bright gold eyes shining with mischief and an odd intelligence. She wore a beige scarf over her neck and had a pair of loose 3/4-length sleeves over her arms that went up from her wrists to a pair of golden bangles over her biceps. Her brown, knee-high boots ran up into a set of leggings which had no inner thigh covering at all, which made the man greatly curious as to how she managed to keep that attire and not seek out a change because of how breezy it must have been. The woman's modesty was covered by a single dark-colored piece of underwear showing off to the world with a matching breastband holding back her ample bosom, but it was the seemingly innocuous belt she wore that made his eyebrow rise in curiosity. Lionel, huh? He immediately recognized the Tigu due to his past with one of its former wielders. Leon swiped one of the 6 glasses and gulped it down nearly as quickly as Naruto had managed. She let out a sigh in contentment after removing the mug and commented with a smack of her lips, ah, you're still my all-time favorite, no matter how much time passes. Hey old man. Did you add something more to it since last week? The man's eyes opened and the barkeep realized who was in front of him, oh, it's you, Leon. But nope. Nothing new. Maybe it's because someone else is paying for it. True, she agreed with a serious nod of her head. There's always a certain allure that makes everything taste better off of someone else's plate. But there is, Naruto agreed with a solemn nod as well. So, besides bumming off of complete strangers, what do you do, Leon? I don't recall giving you permission to call me by name, she grinned playfully, but I don't mind so long as I get to do the same to you. I don't mind at all. Good. The vivacious woman let out a rather unladylike belch and answered his previous question, I'm from around these parts. Born and bred down here in these slums. Made a real name for myself as a little tyke giving massages at a local parlor. You still offering? Naruto asked, seemingly interested in her every word at this point. Why are you propositioning little Almi? She smirked at him, which he returned with an innocent shrug and a smirk of his own. She then admitted, I still do on occasion, but not real often anymore. Got myself another job now. One where I ain't gotta offer any happy endings if you catch my drift, she finished with a small hiccup. Naruto downed another glass, and a little flush began to show on his disguised face. I hear ya, he responded with his voice beginning to slur a little from the alcohol. So what you doing now? A little of this. A little of that, the woman answered vaguely. So what about yourself? I'm guessing from the cloak that you're a traveler. Naruto took another swig from a mug before nodding once and admitting, been moving around for the last decade or so, but I was born and raised right here in these here slums, same as you. If possible, the woman's face brightened even further after hearing his words. She held up one of the last glasses of ale and proposed, a toast. To two slum souls like ourselves who have found our way back home. The disguised man smiled drunkenly and clinked the two mugs while slurring an agreement, to us. To a better tomorrow today. I'll drink to that. Leon exclaimed, and then the pair of drunken blondes chugged the last two mugs of ale. Whew. Now that really hit the spot there. It sure did, he nodded in agreement. Oi, barkeep. Another few rounds for the pretty lady and myself as well. You're a man after my own heart. The beauty declared, slapping his back in hearty merriment. She then settled down a little bit and asked in a more casual tone, so what you doing back here in the capital, Root? His lone visible eyebrow rose and he queried curiously, Root? She shrugged back uncaringly, I don't really like long names. Best to keep 'em short and simple in my book, so Root is what I got for you out of Naruto. You got any better ideas? He actually stopped and thought about that for a minute before returning with a shrug, not really, but you're the first to ever come up that then. My mom used to always call me her little Naru-chan though. Then Root it is. Leon exclaimed excitedly. So would you come back to the dreariest city in the world? Naruto answered, I heard a few stories and came back to see if they're true or not. Which ones? She probed deeper behind her perceived drunkenness. There's a whole bunch of rumors out there. The blonde man hiccuped once in chorus with his drinking partner and his eyes darted around the bar in search of anyone listening in. After confirming there were none, he leaned closer to his partner and whispered, can you keep a secret? You bet your sweet ass I can, Leon grinned. She leaned closer after completely turning towards him and asked lowly, so what's the secret? Is it something big? He nodded once and his mouth opened to speak, but he stopped himself before he said anything to her. He shook his head and reminded himself, no. I can't say. If I do then someone'll try and kill you too. Leon whined in annoyance, oh, come on. Now you got me really interested, Root. You can't just tease a girl that way. Dangle that juicy piece of meat and then take it away when I bite. Come on. Pretty please, she looked at him with her large eyes which oddly reminded Naruto of the cat his mother had kept as a pet when he was a kid. Eventually his resolve crumbled and he sighed in defeat, oh, alright. I'll tell you my big plan, just don't go blabbing it around town. Gosh. She smirked with a victorious fist pump. Still got it. But, he added, I can't just give it to you need to earn it, you hear? Leon stopped and seemed to consider his words for a moment before asking him, so what you want me to do? Spar with me, he revealed simply. You land a clean blow and I'll tell you a secret so big that it could very well destroy the empire. The buxom beauty looked dead into his eyes and then suddenly burst out laughing at his proposal. Naruto's face was absent humor as she gasped out, oh that's rich, Root. You very nearly had me there for a minute. You know, if all you wanted was a grope then all you had to do was just ask. You've got no idea how many horny asses come in here and try out that same line on me and each one's turned out to just be all bluster with no real meat to them at all. She stood up from her stool with a click of her tongue in disappointment while shaking her head. I honestly thought there was a little more muscle to you, Root. You disappoint me. Fine by me, he responded with an uncaring shrug. He then finished in a cunning whisper just loud enough for her to hear as she began to walk away, although I do wonder just who gave you that tigu that you've got wrapped around that sweet ass of yours, Leon. The blonde woman stopped cold at hearing his words and her shoulders tensed, showing that he'd hit the bullseye. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, she attempted to casually deny, but she made no moves to escape just yet. Nice try, he smirked from behind his last mug of ale, but after all the fights I had with the asshole all those years ago, I'd recognize Lionel anywhere. Now, why don't you sit back down, pretty lady, so we can talk a little bit more. I do enjoy your company and you can stop trying to think up ways to try and kill me now. I'm not going to run to the guards, you can trust me when I say I hate the capital as much as anybody. Leon turned back around towards him with a large grin on her face, which was to fool the casual observers, but the trained assassin in the cloak was easily able to pinpoint the signs of restrained hostility in her cheeks. Well, why didn't you say so? she shouted playfully, drawing everyone in the bar's attention towards them both. The beauty then jumped onto his lap, wrapped her arms around and legs around his chest and waist, and happily exclaimed, "Why don't we go somewhere a little more private so we can finish our discussion?" Jealous murmurs from the rest of the bar's patrons fell upon deaf ears as he frowned at the woman grinding on his lap. "So that's your game, eh?" he realized quickly after assessing the situation. "Put me on the defensive by gathering all this attention and preventing me from making a move while we're in your territory. Not bad, girly, but I'm an adaptable man." The man sprouted a lascivious grin and he drunkenly screamed out, "Hell yes. Your place or mine?" "Mine's not far," she answered while keeping up the ploy rather well. She gave no signs she could prevent from showing. "Just a couple streets down. You know that bookstore nobody ever shops at?" "I do," he nodded. Naruto then sent out a mental command and he felt two of his active clones accept his new orders over the link. "I know the owner," she told him. Leon then pulled out a set of keys from her pants pocket and finished with a lecherous grin. "He's got a back storeroom that he keeps a bed in for when he's gotta stay overnight. You up for a roll around in the hay?" The man nodded once in assent to her request and then the pair of blondes both left the bar, with Leon walking next to and clinging onto him. She leaned her head on his shoulder and wrapped both of her hands around his body, pinning one of his arms between them both with her tight hold. To the casual onlooker, and judging from the many jealous glares Naruto felt on the back of his head, it seemed that a happy couple were basking in the afterglow of a wondrous night and were walking down the street for some shopping, but anyone trained to see it could notice the tension between the pair. It took the two a few minutes of travel through the busy streets to finally locate the right bookstore. Just like usual, there were no customers, but this time the shopkeeper seemed to be nowhere to be found. "I wonder where the bookkeeper is," Naruto mused aloud while Leon pulled the keys out from the valley of her breasts. "It's a good day for sales out here." The door's locks gave way and she informed him, "Lubbock's off on business today, Root. Won't be back until later." "After you," she offered once she'd opened the door. Naruto calmly entered the shop and idly perused the shelves lining the store while Leon locked the door behind them. She made certain the closed sign was facing outwards and closed the front window's shades, preventing anyone from looking in and spotting them. "Now then," she began, all playfulness now absent, "why don't you tell me how the hell you recognized Lionel, Root?" "The books your friends got here," he idly commented while he whistled once in appreciation and he pulled a copy of his mother's favorite book off of the shelf. He flipped through the tome and informed her simply, "And I knew it because I'm the one who found it 15 years ago." "Bullshit," she growled. "I bought Lionel from a clothing store 5 years ago because nobody knew it was one. It had never reacted to anyone who'd ever worn it before until I put it on." He closed a book after reading one of the passages his mother had loved to read to him over and over again from back when he was a little kid and responded to her claim, "Then you're the first person Lionel's liked since I killed his previous wielder." Leon's eyes sharpened at hearing his words and she took a ready stance in preparation for a fight, but Naruto made no such moves. Without turning towards her, he continued, "Let's see if I'm remembering right, then Honest gave it to some noble or other to bribe him for his support for when he planned to take over, but Lionel refused to activate for any of the Fat Lord's men. I guess then that they sold it since it was pretty much useless to him. Then you came along a few years later and charmed the big kitty." The woman began to silently stalk about the empty store towards her prey and she demanded, "Just who the hell are you, Root? Are you one of the minister's assassins or an agent of the revolution?" "Neither to your second guesses and the other bit's the secret I told you about, Leon," he replied amicably, seemingly unaffected by the tension in the air. He turned towards her with a big smile on his face and told her, "You know, my offer still stands. If you can land just a single clean blow, then I'll tell you just who I really am, but now I realize that a bet's not a real bet unless I can get something from you should I win." "Just what is it you want then?" "Information," he answered easily. "If I win then you need to swear to answer a simple yes or no question honestly. Deal?" Leon's gold eyes narrowed and she clarified, "What question?" His smile remained plastered over his face and Naruto presented his terms, "Are you a member of Night Raid?" Her eyes went wide in astonishment before they went sharp and intense again. "I don't know who you are, but now I can't let you live, Root," she growled menacingly. "Too many of our faces are known already. Nothing personal. Just a part of the job." Waves of killing intent then washed across the store and her belt began to glow. Unaffected by the crashing tide sent through the air, Naruto watched on with an interested eye since this was his first time witnessing Lionel's full activation firsthand. Two furred clawed paws enveloped both of Leon's hands which he knew from personal experience were exceptionally sharp. Her short blonde hair grew into a spiky mid-back length golden mane with a pair of cat-like ears growing from each side of her scalp and to complete the transformation, a gold tail now crept out from her lower cloth and snaked itself around her waist. Before any words could be said, Leon charged across the aisle with a single paw raised to cleave him in two. She brought her claws down even with his neck, but she was stunned to find only air where he'd been not even half a second before. Leon felt a tug on one of her new ears and quickly turned only to find her foe directly in front of her, his face oddly intrigued for some reason, while he held one of her added appendages. She jumped away while he complimented her appearance. "Not bad there, Leon. I'd always wondered why it was that the son of a bitch always seemed to be dressed like a cat, and now I know why." A bead of sweat traveled down Leon's face, but she otherwise showed no outward reaction to his little show of speed, impressing him with her mental fortitude. "Not bad," she offered back. "You're fast." "That's an understatement if there ever was one, my dear," Naruto told her with a sigh. "I am the best at what I do." Her feet slid out into another stance in preparation for another pounce, and she asked him conversationally, "And just what might that be?" "Kicking ass," he grinned, and then he disappeared from sight. Leon quickly reacted and punched right where his face reappeared behind her, but he managed to avoid the furred fist and complimented once more, "Good instincts. It's been a few years since anyone was able to guess my path until it was too late. I take it that's Lionel's assistance at work." She offered no verbal response to his query, but the slight twitch of her jawline was enough to confirm it to him. Leon offered him no room to get away and began sending flurries of punches and kicks of all types and in all directions at him. The blonde's face retained his large grin as he continued to easily evade each blurring strike, seemingly with relative ease, which began to annoy his foe. Eventually the assault ceased and Leon decided to disengage from the conflict for the moment. She jumped away from him and perched herself atop one of the largest bookshelves with her body in a four-legged crouch. Her eyes narrowed in thought, and the lighting in the store that shined from the roof down onto her perched form reminded Naruto of when his mother's feline companion would perch herself atop his head and act like she owned the world. "What's so funny, Root?" Leon growled down once she realized he was chuckling for some reason. "Oh, nothing," he replied with a wave of his hand. "Just feeling a little nostalgic these past few days since I got back to the capital is all." "Tell me," she suddenly began, "why is it you're really back in the capital, Root? You deny being an assassin and an agent, yet I'm not believing you and my instincts are screaming at me that you're a whole lot more than you show. Have you considered joining Night Raid? We're currently down a few members, and I can tell you seem to have no love for the minister. You're obviously strong enough too, so what do you say?" "Not really interested," he dismissed lazily. "You see, I've met those assholes leading the supposed revolution, and they're not really my friends after the stunt I pulled on them a little over 5 years ago. Nagenda's alright, but I'm not really one to just do as I'm told, and she's never liked any rebelliousness in her troops. So, nope." The lion-enhanced woman frowned down at him in disappointment, "A pity really. Unfortunately, I can't let you live now regardless, as I don't think you'd let me capture you and take you prisoner. With you and Akame, though, I don't know if even Esdeith's new troop would stand a chance." "Word to the wise," he advised her. Naruto then moved so fast she couldn't keep track of him and he reappeared directly behind her. "Never assume you're the superior of the two combatants." The blonde man sent a single chop of his hand to the back of his foe's neck and Leon's entire body went completely limp. Her listless limbs caused her to fall to her side and off of the bookcase towards the floor, but Naruto caught her before she could smash into the solid flooring a story below. He gently laid her on the ground and scolded her, "Stop playing possum, Leon. The nerve I just hit only temporarily paralyzed you from the neck down. I know you're still conscious." Leon's gold eyes opened and she simply told him, resigned to her fate now, "Just do what you will and make it quick. If you're going to rape me, then do it while I'm still warm." The lone bemused chuckle came from the man and he reiterated, "You can relax, you big baby, I'm not going to hurt you or run to the guards. Trust me when I say that would only create more problems than the both of us could handle. No, I only want you to honor the arrangement we made earlier. So, yes or no, are you a member of Night Raid?" "I'd have figured that the past few minutes was proof of that," she mumbled bitterly. "So is that a yes or a no?" Leon took in a steadying breath and she figured aloud, "I suppose there's no point in denying it since I'm about to die anyways. Yes, I am a member of Night Raid. You won't get the names of the others out of me no matter how hard you try though, so don't bother, I won't break." "That's a little over-dramatic, don't you think? Besides, I just got what I wanted out of you," Naruto chirped with a happy grin. He then pinched another nerve on the side of her neck and told her just before she fell unconscious, "If you want to beat me though you'll need to try much harder next time, little girl." "Itsumi," Akame whispered to herself. She then finished strapping on her forearm guards and drew Murasame from its sheath. "Please stay safe." The dark-haired young woman closed her eyes and took in a steadying breath, feeling the slight breeze waft its way across the training ground. After a few moments passed, the wind died and her crimson eyes opened, cold and sharp. She dashed across the training grounds, weaving her way through the traps Lubbock had laid earlier at her request. The assassin ducked under an arrow and quickly backflipped away from a large axe that fell right where she'd just been. The girl's hair spun around her as she landed and turned on her toes so she could slash the first dummy's throat. After removing the first of her targets, she dashed to her right and slid underneath a razor-thin wire trap that had been waist-high. Her extended leg's heel met a small rock and she used that to propel herself back to her feet before she slashed the next target's throat and moved on to the next one. For the next hour she continued to seamlessly avoid any harms on her person and consigned each of her planned targets with ease. When she finally stood up and took in her handiwork, she felt pleased with herself when she spied that all 64 targets' necks had been slashed cleanly by her Tigu's blade. Akame then looked down at herself to ascertain any damage she'd received from the obstacle course and frowned in dissatisfaction at what she saw. Still got a ways to go, she reminded herself, while one of her gloved hands grasped her tie, which had now been cut in half at some point in the earlier exchange. Why must this happen when the boss is gone? She couldn't help but wonder bitterly. But both her and mine, now, unable to safely go into the capital for reconnaissance and Tatsumi kidnapped by Esdeath, she was running out of potential ideas. When Lubbock and Leon had returned with that grave news yesterday, Akame had desperately wished to help her precious comrade, but she'd known that mine was right. She couldn't risk everyone's lives for the sake of a single person, no matter who they were. It's the burden of leadership, she recited from memory. She looked up into the sky and asked, why can't I be as strong as you, sensei? If I was then I could protect everyone and I'd never lose anyone again. I try hard every day, but I'm still so far behind you I don't know if I can even see you yet. Esdeath was a foe Akame knew that she had no chance against as things stood unless everything went in her favor. The general was simply too powerful, too intelligent, and too dangerous for anyone in Night Raid to face as they were now. It was a sobering thought and it wasn't one she liked to think about too much, but she couldn't rid herself of it in the past 24 hours. Akame shook her head of such thoughts and sealed her blade back in its sheath. She walked over to the towel mine had left for her and she wiped the sweat off of her brow that had accumulated from her training session. She then checked the time and noted to herself, there's still a few hours until Leon and Lubbock are supposed to be back, so I guess I can go collect some more tuna for dinner tonight. The Night Raid chef then grabbed her large wicker basket and went out to the same waterfall she'd brought Tatsumi to when he was under her domain. She stripped down to her white two-piece bathing suit and looked down into the pool of water below, spying a few schools of the right fish. The girl then dove into the pool and began throwing the tuna out of the water and into the basket she'd left on the bluff 100 feet above the water. After changing back into her usual dress an hour later she returned to the relocated base with another collection of fish to cook for everyone. As she approached the entrance, she spied a dot of pink sitting in a chair atop the base's roof watching the approaching pathway. Mine. Akame called up. Do you see them yet? Not yet. Mine shouted back down. They've still got 30 minutes though. Okay. I'm going to go get dinner started. I'll be down in a minute. The dark-haired chef/killer nodded up to her comrade and made her way into the base and to the kitchen. Once there she began to prepare the food and her consistent practice over the stove allowed her to get most of the meal prepared and finished before Leon and Lubbock had returned. The sound of hysterical laughter came out of her concentration after 20 minutes of working on the meal. Curious as to why she could hear Lubbock and mine laughing like a pair of hyenas, she walked out of the kitchen and into the dining room, deciding to also go ahead and grab the plates so she could set the table. Akame walked into the dining room and found that Leon was sulking in her seat at the table and was staring straight down at the ground at her feet. Lubbock and mine were both grasping their sides while they rolled on the floor, both laughing so hard that each had tears in their eyes. Blinking in shock at the sight and remaining rooted to her spot just inside the doorway, Akame's head glanced around at each of them and asked curiously, what's so funny? Her face. Lubbock shrieked between his gasps for breath. Oh god, that's hilarious. Mine gasped. I'm gonna kill him, Leon mumbled without raising her head. I swear I'm gonna kill that blonde bastard for this. Akame's eyes were large, showing her confusion at hearing all of this, while she thought, what is going on here? She then asked Leon for information. Did someone attack you, Leon, while you were gathering information? You could say that, the older woman confirmed meekly in a small voice. You could also say I really want to meet this guy. Lubbock chimed in happily. If he did this to you, then I've got to meet him and shake his hand. Akame's head tilted to the side and she queried, just what happened out there today? Leon, report. She then recited to them without ever raising her head, I was out doing my recon in the slums like I usually do and I came across a person drinking alone at the bar. I got the feeling that he was worth talking to, so I joined him for a few minutes for a few beers and I thought he made a pass at me, but now I'm not so sure of that. I got up to leave then, but he blackmailed me into staying with him by telling me he somehow recognized Lionel. I quickly drew as much attention to us as possible and then forced him to go with me someplace isolated. I chose Lubbock's bookstore because I had the key, it was empty, and it was my home turf. After I locked the door I tried to get him to tell me just who the hell he was, but he refused to unless I played his game. He told me he'd tell me exactly who he really was if I could land a clean blow on him, but if I lost then I needed to answer if I was in Night Raid or not. Naturally, she continued on through the suddenly absent laughter. I knew right then that he at the very least suspected I was, so I couldn't let one of us leave the store alive. I activated Lionel and tried to pounce on him, but he was too fast and quick for me to land a punch or kick. He seemed to make it look effortless when he dodged me. I was able to predict his path once, and then I guess he just amped up the speed even further in response to keep me from doing so again. I realized then that he wasn't going to be an easy kill at all, so I disengaged and attempted to buy a little time for Lubbock to get back and help. I then asked him if he'd be willing to join us because I could tell from when we talked at the bar that he hates the Prime Minister something fierce, but he shot me down. Claimed he wanted nothing to do with the revolution at all. The guy then just disappeared from my senses, even with Lionel activated entirely, and managed to paralyze my body below my neck. At that point I was certain I was dead meat, so I admitted to him that I was in Night Raid. He then pinched my neck again and knocked me out cold, but not before that arrogant asshole rubbed my defeat in my face. The room was deathly silent once she'd finished recounting her tale, all prior humor completely gone now. Akame calmly digested all the information and assessed the situation before she prompted Leon to finish. Just what did he say to you at the end, Leon? The blonde let out a dissatisfied exhale and repeated for her, if you want to beat me, though you'll need to try much harder, little girl. Akame's red eyes shot completely open in her shock and she dropped the plate she'd been holding in her hands, shattering them upon the ground. Both Lubbock and mine looked over at their temporary leader curiously while she reeled, no. That's it can't be Leon, she sternly requested, did this man give you his name? Naruto, the older woman revealed. That's all he gave me. Akame's dark hair flew behind her as she quickly dashed across the room and appeared in front of the blonde woman. She then asked her, just before you got knocked out, did he do anything to you? Anything at all? Leon answered her, he didn't rape me, if that's what you're asking, Akame. How do you know for certain he didn't do anything though? Lubbock queried, all humor from earlier drained away from his face. I've been around it enough to know the signs, the buxom woman informed him. She then listed off, there were no additional fluids, no pain between my legs, and all my clothes were still intact and on my body. He had the chance but didn't do it. Well that's a sight, mine commented while crossing her arms over her chest. For once someone doesn't rape a defenseless girl. I'm somewhat in shock. Akame ignored all of that and requested with an unfamiliar anxiety, Leon, please show me your face. I promise that whatever he did I won't laugh. Mine said the same thing, she responded bitterly. It was a promise I just couldn't keep no matter how hard I tried, mine shrugged without remorse. Please, Akame repeated, and Leon did as she had been asked. The red-eyed young woman sucked in a shocked breath at what she saw and she felt a single tear fall from her right eye at the sight. 6 black whiskers had been drawn on Leon's face. It is, she confirmed. The kitty cat has her own whiskers now, Lubbock grinned. Shut up, Lubbock. Leon shouted back threateningly. I tried for 2 hours to wash this shit off, but nothing I tried worked. She then went stiff and asked, just what are you doing, Akame? She ignored everything else going on around her and just blankly stared at the marked whiskers. Eventually she simply licked her thumb and wiped it on one of the markings. You? Mine and Lubbock grimaced. What the hell, Akame? Leon screamed from the spot across the room that she'd retreated to, her face flushed behind her whiskers. Akame merely informed her, confirming something. Also, that type of ink only comes off when saliva is wiped on it. No other liquid works for some reason. All 3 other members of Night Raid blinked dumbly to her words. Huh? Leon asked and then she touched her face to confirm her words. Her gold eyes went wide and she exclaimed after confirming, you're right, Akame. I can't believe it though, she added in a mumble. Really? Saliva. The temporary leader of the group of assassins was completely oblivious to the entire subsequent conversation between the other 3. It is him it has to be, she told herself with conviction in her certainty. He's the only one I know of who could and would do all that Leon said he did. The only thing I don't know though, she thought while her hand tightly gripped her blade's hilt, is how he's still alive. I still have the proof that he died, so how? Leon, she suddenly spoke up, cutting off the banter going on, can you find this Naruto again before midnight? Her gold eyes showed her confusion to the request, but she nodded, yeah, no problem. Dude's not trying to draw attention to himself, but he isn't really going out of his way to hide either. Why? Because all this was a message, she told everyone, stunning them silent, and I intend to answer with one of my own. Mine, Lubbock and Leon all sprouted vicious smirks after hearing her plan, and Leon asked her, and just what kind of message would you like me to deliver, boss? When you find him, and he won't be hard to, Akame then instructed, tell him that we got his message. Then you are to take him out of the capital to Rendezvous Point Beta. If he wants proof, then tell him this. The blood here is as red as the moon. Don't worry. He'll know what it means. I'll meet you both there. Roger that, Akame, Leon continued to smirk. Akame's grip tightened further on Murasam's crimson hilt, and she felt like she could hear her Tigu singing from this news. A feeling of excitement, nervousness, and anxiety pierced her thoughts while she swore to herself, I promised I'd make you proud, sensei, and tonight I'm going to prove it to you. Naruto leaned against the trunk of a large pine in the dense forest that surrounded the capital's outer walls. He continued to whistle one of his mother's favorite lullabies as he looked up at the moon and felt his face twitch. So I was right all along, he thought with a small smile. The man's lone visible eye drifted down and towards his current company, and he assured her, you can relax, Leon. I promise I'm not going to bite you. Forgive my skepticism, Leon responded, not sounding apologetic in the slightest, but you didn't leave the best first impression earlier, Root. Need I remind you that it was you who attacked me first, he grinned back cheekily. So if we were being technical then all I did earlier was entirely out of self-defense. I do wonder why you thought I'd be willing to join you after you attacked me though. She shrugged once and replied to him, that's how most of us were recruited anyway, so I figured why not. But that was cruel of you to mark me like you did, Root. Naruto smirked and teased, but don't lions usually mark their preferred mates, Leon? Not like that, she informed him with a rueful shake of her head. I can do it the other way, if you'd rather, he grinned at her, and then he noticed another scent in the air. She's here, he thought while schooling his face into a neutral expression. The former assassin then turned his head towards the new presence, and his cerulean eye locked with both of her red ones. The two most immediately recognizable features of the new young woman there were her hair blacker than a new moon, and so long that it fell below her thighs and her eyes. Red as the rivers of blood she'd spilled. Her choice of attire was a sleeveless dark mini dress that fluttered over the middle of her toned thighs in the nightly breeze that had a red skirt armor covering her left hip, which was held up by a crimson belt. Around her neck was a necktie the same color as her forearm gauntlets. Blood red. And strapped to her side and within its sealed sheath, Naruto spied the crimson hilt of her bladed Tigu Murasame. Naruto pushed himself off of the tree and walked out to the other side of the small clearing. He pulled out a knife and suddenly cut off the lengthy locks of hair hiding his scar, revealing it also to the world at large as well now. He held his closed hand out in front of him and opened his palm upwards, the blonde strands being blown away by the night's gentle wind. The man then gripped his cloak and tossed it into the air behind him, now showing his own attire to his opponent. The man wore a sleeveless, skin-tight orange tunic and black pants that latched onto his legs just as tightly as his shirt did to his torso. Along both his arms' entire lengths ran a pair of dark lines that ended in the center of his palms, and down the outward seams of his leggings was a single helix curve white line that ended even with his ankles. He wore a pair of deep black boots over his feet, and in the center of his shirt's back was a swirling red symbol which resembled a whirlpool, the symbol of his mother's family. He viciously smirked across the way at his unfazed opponent, who simply gripped her sword's hilt tightly and pulled it from its scabbard. The bright light of the moon above glinted off of the polished blade surface menacingly as she held the katana out before her, facing its edge towards him. Naruto chuckled once and the edge of his lips twitched upwards at the side in front of him. His arm then shot towards the girl, and a small projectile rocketed through the air directly towards her, but the dark-haired assassin merely leaned her head to the side to avoid it. The small knife sailed by her head, blowing her hair slightly as it went by, and dug its entire 6-inch length into the trunk of a tree behind her with a dull thud. The signal given, the red-eyed teen then shot across the clearing with Murasame singing through the air at her side. Naruto jumped over her horizontal slash that had been even with his hips and pushed his booted heel off of the blade's back in order to jump far enough away to avoid the next swipe at his neck. 2 daggers were pulled out of his pants and he brandished both in each of his extended arms before leaping towards his opponent once more. He slashed at the young woman at speeds many couldn't hope to see, but she danced away from each of his blades with a graceful ease no mere dancer could ever hope to compare to. She eventually ducked underneath one of his high cuts and delivered a straight kick directly into his center, sending him skidding along the ground and away from her. She then sprinted forward again, but was forced to slow her advance in order to deflect both of the daggers Naruto threw at her, which allowed him just enough time to adequately recuperate from her stronger than expected blow. The man somersaulted over the sprinting girl and landed a few feet behind her, but he was again forced on the defensive once more due to her immediately pivoting on her foot and her spinning the blade in a deadly arc directed at his jugular. Naruto's grin was practically maniacal as he was pushed back while continuing to avoid Murasame's cursed deadly blade. He eventually jumped a fair distance away from his foe and then stomped the ground once, causing a tremor to rumble across the battlefield that shook the very earth beneath them and forced his enemy to stop her offensive in order to keep her feet. The man quickly took his provided chance and delivered a solid punch that dug into the young woman's stomach. The girl grunted from the impact and was sent flying through the air until she fell to the ground hard and continued to roll a good 20 meters away from him. Murasame's bladed edge fell from the sky and pierced the ground just a mere 3 feet away from where she came to rest on the ground, prone. Not bad, Naruto calculated with his smile briefly faltering on his face. She didn't want to risk being cut by Murasame's blade in the tumble on the ground, so she threw it into the air just before she hit it. You've gotten much better, girlie. He then ducked under a sudden kick aimed at his head and scolded the other girl's timely intervention. Don't you know it's rude to intrude on a touching reunion, Leon? Bullshit, the Lionel-enhanced woman growled at him with a feral snarl while she brandished her clawed paws in front of her. Like hell I'm gonna let you go in for the kill while I'm here. Before he could berate her for her assumptions and lack of understanding the situation, the other member of Night Rage shakily called out, Leon, stand aside. He's my opponent. The golden-eyed woman looked back at her friend attempting to shakily stand and screamed in disbelief, have you gone completely bonkers? Look at yourself. I know how strong you are, Akame, and it's not easy to get you so beat up. This guy's too much for only one of us to take on. I know, Akame informed her, but he's always been like that. Even still, you need to stand aside, Leon. This is my battle and I will fight it. That's an order, she added icily when her friend made no move to desist. Leon shook her head, but didn't allow her eyes to leave the observing blonde man. She responded without remorse, then that's an order I'm gonna have to refuse, Akame. I won't let you fight him alone. I won't let you die. The sound of an amused snort of laughter came from the lone male present, yet it wasn't a kind of insane laughter. I see you've found some good comrades, haven't you, Akame? He noted as he watched the scene. I do believe that's enough for the night though, don't you? Leon's eyes narrowed at him and she demanded, just what the hell are you talking about? I mean, he clarified for the respectably skeptical woman, that I'm done fighting. I've seen what I wanted to. He then let his tightly wound body visibly relax and drained the tension from himself, and then he began to walk towards Akame, who was holding onto Murasame like a crutch. No. Akame protested vehemently with a refusing shake of her head. I can still fight. I'm not done yet. Naruto merely kept walking towards the girl. Leon watched him closely, but made no hostile movement so long as he didn't. But I am, he informed the girl evenly. Eventually he stopped right in front of the shivering girl, and he gently smiled down at her. One of his hands rested over one of hers atop Murasame's hilt, making her inhale sharply, and he told her softly, it's over, Akame. If you're going to ever beat me then you'll need to try a lot harder next time. The black-haired girl sniffed once and looked upwards with her eyes large and their corners showing the beginnings of tears. Her lip quivered as she timidly asked, are you really back, sensei? This elicited a frown from the man, and he flicked her on the nose in response, making her squeak in pain and hold one gauntleted hand over it. He scolded her, I thought I told you the last time we saw each other that you were to never call me that again. Akame's nose was as red as her shocked wide eyes, and she hurriedly tired to tell him, I swear I didn't mean all that I said 3 years ago. I didn't know why you left yet, and I was still so angry because you left us, and I wanted to just hurt you as much as you did me, and I. She squeaked again when he cut her off by flicking her in the nose one more time, and he informed the girl, I knew all that then, and I know all that now. I never hated you, Akame, not even after all you said that day. If I did then I'd have never come back to the capital in the first place. She looked up and timidly asked, so you're not? He smiled gently to her and reiterated, no, and I never was. All I've ever been is proud of you, Akame, and that's still not changed even after all these years. The pair of tears trailed down her cheeks and she sniffled, I. She then buried her face into his chest and wrapped her arms around him, crying out, you're back. You're back. I thought for so long that you'd died. I can't believe you're back. He placed one hand atop her shaking scalp and let the other come to rest on her back to comfort the emotional girl he remembered, just like he used to have to do all those years ago. He smiled at his former disciple, how could I go and die and leave my darling little ones behind? I'd have never forgiven myself. Naruto allowed a lone tear to drip onto her head and he whispered softly, but yeah, Akame, I'm back and this time it's for good. I won't ever leave again. I promise you. Chapter 3. Naruto's bright cerulean eyes panned up towards the noonday sun and he was able to quickly figure out the time. 3 hours until when I told Akame I'd meet the rest of Night Raid, just enough time to take care of this. He pulled his hooded cowl over his face further and began to carefully navigate the crowded main street. The blond man kept one hand on his relatively fat coin purse and his eyes darted around in search of the right building. There, he finally spied the target's business. He turned to his left then and snaked his way through the midday bustle until he arrived at his destination a few minutes later. "Nice to meet you," the young red-haired desk clerk greeted him. "Do you have an appointment, mister?" "No, I'm afraid I don't, young ma'am," he responded amicably but chose not to reveal his face to her. He forcibly blocked out the smell of sweat and copious amounts of perfume that covered the business's clientele's exploits. Naruto then pulled out a single coin, placed it on the desk, and continued, "You see, I'm an old friend of Donnie's who's been traveling the last few years. I'm only back in the capital for a few days and I wanted to see how my old friend has been." Wariness and a nervous air surrounded the girl while her eyes shifted back and forth from his hidden face and the gold piece. She attempted to hide a gulp and managed a small, albeit scared, smile as she informed him, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, but the owner isn't in today. The mistress is meeting a few clients privately." She slowly took the piece of gold, pocketed it, and finished telling him, "If you'd like I could give you the appropriate address." Naruto suppressed a frown that wanted to appear at discovering this delay and instead nodded gratefully, "That would be fine, and thank you for your help, miss." The young woman then wrote down the personal address of the owner and Naruto departed while hiding a sinister smirk. If the clients were who he believed they were then he was a truly lucky man. The assassin melted into the sea of hurting people and a rather plain-looking older man with gray streaks in his hair approached him. "We're already confirming, boss," the man whispered to him without stopping. "Good," he replied simply and then continued on his way alone. Even if the Yeagers were here today there'd be no way to predict this, the whiskered assassin thought with a wry smile. Donnie's not even heard of outside of certain circles, after all. Throngs of humans faded behind Naruto as he calmly walked away from Main Street and into the diamond residential quarter of the capital. The amount of sheer affluence on open display in every direction disgusted the man greatly, but he instead schooled his mind and slipped off into the shadows of an alleyway and melted into darkness. The man quickly and quietly scaled the alley's brick wall until his fingers eventually gripped the crest of the wall. He waited patiently as the footsteps of a single patrolman lazily traipsed by and he silently vaulted onto the wall. A single dagger appeared in the man's hand and he crept by the guard without being noticed atop the rampart. "Too easy," he smirked to himself as he ducked behind a roof garden and observed the mansion's guard below. "Let's see, I spy 4 spotters on the roof, 13 ground patrols, and probably 6 to 10 personal bodyguards inside. This'll be fun. Challenge 1. Don't kill any of them, eat shields." A sudden commotion then clambered over the mansion's walls that sent every guardsman to meet its cause. Clangs of steel meeting steel rang out in the air for numerous minutes while Naruto patiently awaited the right moment and that moment came when a call for reinforcements rang out and brought 8 members of the resident's elite guard to solidify the front line. Naruto grew a crooked smirk while he clicked his tongue and shook his head in disappointment. "Oh poor Donnie. You're still this predictable. You an honest little pet have lost the paranoia that made you such an impossible target 3 years ago." He then jumped down from the wall and landed in a lush garden that had all kinds of flowers in full bloom for any guests to see. Naruto stopped when his eyes located a crimson flower with a gold center and he walked over to it. "Mom's favorite," he breathed out in awe. The man reached for it with steady hands and carefully picked the delicate flower from its stem. Naruto grew a soft smile and he murmured nostalgically, "Still as beautiful as she was." He lost himself to his memories momentarily before reminding himself of his purpose at the moment. The assassin placed the flower over his ear, turned away from the garden, and walked into the mansion proper. His sharp hearing detected multiple shouts getting closer and he ducked into a shadowed alcove just before another dozen guards stampeded down the hall and out into the garden. "I was seen. Sloppy." He scolded himself harshly. "Damn me and my nostalgia. Now this just got 10 times harder." After a moment of pondering his plan he simply shrugged uncaringly, "Oh well. If I know Donnie and that fucker then they and her clients have now retreated to her private panic room, believing they'll be safe. Little do they know that I know this place better than both of them." Mentally going over the layout of the mansion he'd studied for the past few days allowed him to decide on the best course of action. He silently departed from his hiding place and walked in a silent crouch until he came to a small painting of a fruit basket. The blonde quickly made certain there was no one else close before examining the painting closely and pressing the lone grape that wasn't attached to the rest. The painting and the wall behind it then depressed back and slid to the side, revealing a small and narrow crawl space which led directly to the panic room. The assassin pulled his entire body into the passage and then pulled the chain which slid the piece of wall and painting back into place behind him. Naruto didn't allow his mind to wander as he silently crept through the damp passageway for approximately 15 minutes until he finally began to hear voices echo along the solid walls. With his devious grin growing ever larger, he slowed down and continued to advance while he listened in on the group's conversation. "Please be calm, my loves," Donnie's soothing voice requested of the guests. Naruto shook his head of his unwanted memories at the moment while she spoke. "My men are handling the situation as we speak. They were all men who were once considered for the Imperial Guard, so it is only a matter of time." "The lady is correct," a deep voice Naruto immediately recognized echoed the sentiment. "My men are fully capable of handling this. We spotted the assassin a few moments ago in the garden, and his body will be brought here without delay." "Oh, I wouldn't be so sure of that," Naruto grinned devilishly. "Do we have any idea as to his identity yet? Is it Night Raid?" "We don't believe so," the guard captain assured the two nobles. "Night Raid's attacks have only ever occurred at night. This isn't them. We believe that it's a group of people who are dissatisfied with both of your policies." There was a slight pause before one noble said, "Well, we have made a few enemies in our day. That's only natural when we ally ourselves with the minister." "Indeed," Naruto's flippant voice cut through the panic room's tense atmosphere. "You'd think people would have learned by now that honest ship is starting to sink." The assassin was sitting in the crawlspace's exit with one leg lazily hanging down and his other knee pulled up with his head resting on it. The portrait of the previous emperor had been pushed aside and his face was completely hidden by his hood's shadow, keeping anyone from recognizing him before he wished them to. All four people already in the room were dressed with disgustingly extravagant attire. Both nobles had graying hair and wore a gold and blue tunic that illustrated their noble status and their individual houses. The guard captain was wearing a set of decorative light armor that had numerous awards emblazoned onto his chest, with a steel greatsword on his hip and a small beret atop his black-haired scalp. Naruto's primary target, however, still looked as beautiful as she did nearly 20 years ago in her late teens. She wore a dazzling orange dress with yellow and gold embroidery all along it that had a long slit that showed off her long, slender, and alabaster thigh. Her above-average bust was showed off brazenly by her dress's low neckline and had a dazzlingly bright diamond necklace that rested between her breasts. The assassin's face turned into a tight frown at seeing the necklace. "So she took that too," he silently noted and added it to his list. "Who are you and what do you want?" one of the nobles demanded from behind the guard captain while the man drew his blade. "Me? I'm just a dead man looking for some company," he responded with an uncaring shrug. Before anyone could even react to his statement he suddenly flashed across the room and slit the guard captain's throat with his eyes frozen behind his hood. The man's eyes widened in shock and recognition once he was able to finally see Naruto's face behind the shadows. His hands dropped the blade and tried in vain to stymie his bleeding and preserve his life, but the middle-aged man was forced to fall to on his face once all life left his eyes and he lost too much blood. The cowering nobles were each slain immediately following the captain. Naruto drove a knife through the first's temple and another small blade deep into the other's left eye. Crimson life blood spouted from each full and fool's wound and coated the room's bed. Ani's body was rigid in shock and horror until she managed to shakily reach her hand up to touch her blood-covered face. Her now crimson hand met her brown eye's sight and her mouth opened to scream, but Naruto stopped her by covering her mouth with his hand and forced her to sit on the blood-soaked mattress. Her panicky eyes found all three corpses in her room and she stared at the killer in her room with nothing but absolute terror reflecting on her face. Now, Naruto calmly shushed her. "No need to draw so much attention, my lady. You heard who my targets were supposed to be. Why would I kill you?" Her reply was muffled so he asked her, "If I remove my hand will you scream?" She hurriedly shook her head in the negative and he then removed her impromptu gag. Who are you?" she asked him, her body shivering. "I already answered that question, my dear," he told her. "I'm only a dead man looking for some company. And I'm that company," she concluded. "Is that why I'm not dead?" "Perhaps," he smiled at her. "You see, I've had my eye on you for quite some time, Donnie." You have?" she squeaked. "Oh my, yes," he nodded to her. "I used to admire you so much, Donnie. You were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen," he whispered adoringly while he tucked a loose strand of her black hair behind her ear. I was?" she stammered out. "Oh, yes," he reiterated while he held her chin with one hand and the other disappeared beneath the dress's hem. The woman let out a pitiable whimper as his fingers ran over her still dripping holes. "I see you still prefer multiple men at once," he commented as she attempted to stifle another whimper when his fingers wiped the semen over her womanhood and rear. "Nearly 20 years and you still haven't changed. Do you still take women as well, my dear?" Tears welled up in her terrified brown eyes and she shakily begged, "Please. I haven't done anything. I beg of you. The minister made me his private whore decades ago. I don't pleasure these men willingly." SHH, he placed a finger covered in the dead noble's semen in her mouth to silence her. "I'm well aware of how long Honest has pimped you out to his loyal followers. Now lick my finger clean." Her fearful eyes went up to his shadowed face, silently begging him to stop. He simply nodded for her to continue, and she whimpered piteously once more before licking his finger clean and swallowing the seed. "But girl," he patted her cheek with his saliva-soaked hand. "Please," she hiccuped while tears finally fell from her eyes. "I beg of you, please don't hurt me. I'll do anything you want." "Oh, dear Donnie," Naruto told her softly while gripping her chin and making her look at his hidden face again, "this isn't about what I want, this is about what you've earned." What I've earned?" she repeated with confusion all over her face. "Oh, yes," he reiterated with a nod. "Well, you are honest private slut, you've lived pretty well for the past few decades, haven't you? A mansion here in the Diamond Quarter, a private whorehouse of your very own, and your competitors being put out of business," he finished while one of his hands gripped the dazzling necklace hanging from her neck permanently. Donnie gulped nervously and she asked him hesitantly, just who are you really?" "Oh, my dear Aunt Donnie," he scolded her playfully, "have you truly gone and forgotten your favorite little nephew?" Her face showed confusion once more at hearing his words for a moment until comprehension dawned and all color drained from her face. "And Naruto?" she stammered fearfully. "You're alive." He pulled back his shadowed hood, revealing his whiskered and grinning face and informed her, "I'm not so easy to kill, dear auntie." The man's face then darkened and he added in a dangerously low voice, "You could say I got that from my mother." Donnie winced at hearing the venom in his words, and she quickly tried to say, I swear I had no idea he was." "Silence," he cut her off darkly while she was suddenly forced to attempt to loosen his tight grip on her delicate neck while he lifted her off the bed and her legs dangled in the air. "You broke the mother's creed when you told him about us and you know it. The only reason you have lived this long is because I didn't discover your treachery until I unraveled the entire conspiracy when I was forced to leave the capital." His eyes burned with an icy fury none could hope to compare to, and he pulled her gasping face closer to his and concluded, "Even if you weren't in the room that night, your hands are stained with mom's blood, and today, I'm going to give you just what you've earned, auntie." He then released his hold on her neck and she crumpled on the floor while desperately inhaling all the air that she could. Naruto stood over her like a demon come to deliver judgment upon a sinful soul while she slowly pushed herself off of the ground and started to regain her breath. Gross, resigned chuckles came from the woman and she looked at him with tears of sorrow and regret dripping from her chin and onto the floor. "You're right, Naruto," she answered his accusations without attempting to deny them. "I never wanted to hurt you or your mother, but I still did it and have yet to pay for my sins. Before you kill me, would you let me have one last talk with the boy I cared for?" Naruto was silent for a moment before nodding and allowing her, out of respect for the woman you once were. "Thank you, my dearest boy," Donnie sincerely told him. She then stood up from the floor, ignoring the blood and corpses surrounding her with her eyes only on her soon-to-be killer. Her voice was laden with her emotions as she began, "I'm so terribly sorry for everything my selfish actions led to, Naruto. I know you probably don't believe me when I say I loved you and your mother as if you were both my own blood, but I really did. Your mother was the best out of all of us and everyone was jealous of her beauty, Naruto. I looked up to her and I still see her smiling face in my nightmares. I just know that she has been mocking me and my idiotic selfishness every night. Kushi was the next in line to become mother when she met your father," she spat out with disgust at the term father. "If I'd known if I'd even had an inkling of what would come of my foolish actions, then I would have left my dagger in his neck before he even left my room, consequences be damned. But nothing I can ever do would ever make up for all the pain you've had to go through," she confessed to him with a hitch in her voice. She started to finally walk across the room and towards him, with nothing but genuine compassion in her eyes as she continued, "You were the son I never could have, and had I known I swear I would have ran away with you that night, disappeared from the empire completely, and hide you with the revolution if I had to. My fondest memories were of teaching you how to read and write, staying up reading you to sleep when your mom couldn't because of work, and so many others where you just slept on my lap on into the night." She finally stood directly before his impassive face with a mournful, loving, resigned smile on her face while she reached up with one of her shaking hands and lightly rested it on one of his whiskered cheeks. "I know I've wronged you beyond forgiveness, Naruto, but please believe me when I say this that I mean it with all of my heart. I have made love with many men and even women in my life, but no one has ever taken up as much of my heart as you. Even now, I love you more than anyone, my dearest Naruto." Naruto said nothing in response to her confessions and she wrapped him in a hug while sobbing on his shoulder and they remained fixed in that position for a few minutes. Not even a single flicker of emotion showed on his face and his body remained still even with the woman shaking on him. Donnie then spoke with a slight break in her voice through her crying, "I know I don't deserve it, but can you please make it quick? I've known this day would come and I'm finally ready to die. There's so many things I need to make up for and your mother's the first person I intend to find on the other side." She pushed herself off of him and her loving brown eyes met his expressionless cerulean ones and she whispered, "Goodbye, Naruto." Naruto closed his eyes and took in a deep, steadying breath. He then plunged his knife directly into her heart. Her eyes went lifeless and she limply slid off of his body. She fell onto the floor in a disheveled clump and never stirred again. The man stood rooted to that spot for a moment until he finally felt a single tear streak down the side of his face. Naruto kneeled down next to his target's still warm corpse and sniffed, "I loved you too, auntie. I wish that we could go back to those blissful days, but we can't. All we can do is keep moving forward and try to make the best of it. When I found out it was you I didn't want to believe it. All those memories are still some of my most precious too." He tried to stop the overflow of emotions. Tears began to flow and he pushed on, "You always took the time to keep me happy, even though you wound up losing clients because of me. I loved how you I'm so sorry." He cried out. The vulnerable assassin sat there crying over his latest kill for what felt like an extended eternity, with the only sound being the echo of his sobs in the sealed-off panic room. Tears continued to fall off of his face and onto the peaceful-looking woman's blissfully smiling face, while the emotions he tried so hard to suppress washed over him with the force of a natural disaster. Hundreds of memories from his too short childhood spent with his last kill swam through his body. His heart hurt more and more as each beautiful smile he remembered flashed in front of his eyes and amplified the guilt clawing in his chest. He could still feel how safe he felt in her arms whenever he had shivered into her bosom, whether it be from a thunderstorm in the middle of the night, a nightmare, or even people picking on him because of his whisker-like birthmarks. He still remembered how she would sneak sweets out of the kitchen and share them with him in secret. He still remembered the pranks she showed him and how she introduced him to the meticulous and beautiful art of pranking. He still remembered when he'd insulted her favorite color, only to have her give him a lecture that swayed him on the awesomeness of orange. Ani had been just as important in creating Naruto into whom he was and returned to as even his mother had been. He'd come here knowing that what he'd done needed to happen, but now all he felt was that the hole in his heart had grown even greater than before. Eventually the tears finally managed to cease their flow down his face and he wiped his eyes with his sleeve while ruefully saying to no one present, "Well, now it's just Honest and a few others left." He looked up and whispered, "Just a few more. I'm almost there, Mom." He then gently pulled the flower off of him and placed it in Donnie's gorgeous black locks. "Just a few more and then I'm done for good." Naruto leaned over the body, kissed Donnie's still warm forehead in reverence to the memories they'd shared, stood up, and left the scene of the murders. No one ever saw a thing. The blonde man let out a low whistle in appreciation at the size of the place. "Say what you will about the gal, but Nagenda's got pretty good taste. This place is huge. And it's actually pretty hard to find too." He then looked behind him and nodded in satisfaction to the thin barrier of strings he'd located and avoided entirely. Whoever designed this place earned a mental shout-out from him for picking such an easily defensible place. There was dense forestry preventing an all-out assault, a few rivers which would allow quick and speedy getaways, a large cliff above that was a perfect vantage point for scouting, and on the way in Naruto had seen that the area was lush with wildlife. The Kame must love this place, he thought with a small smile. Kurum would have liked it too, so much wonderful food to cook and to eat. Whoever's using crossed ale though is apparently pretty good too. That barrier was no joke. It wasn't perfect, but you'd need some killer eyes to even see those strings they used. Nagenda's got herself a pretty good collection I guess, he thought with a sly grin while he walked towards the night raid base of operations. As he got closer his acute hearing started picking up a total of 5 voices. 2 he'd met personally, 1 he'd heard once before and was able to guess his name, an additional female that he concluded must have been that main character Akame and Leon warned him about, and 1 last male he had a gut feeling he'd seen before. Naruto overheard Mine tell someone, "Here. Drink this. It should numb the aches until you can hop in the springs." "Thanks, Mine," the lone voice he couldn't place communicated his gratitude. "Wave's blow would have probably killed me if I hadn't blocked it." "We can wait until Tatsumi is recovered before he debriefs us," Akame spoke up like a commander. "For now you should just rest up, Tatsumi." "The kid from the tourney?" Naruto quickly realized and his eyes slightly widened in shock. He quickly suppressed the slight jealousy he felt in his chest and reminded himself, it's not his fault. He's a friend of Akame too, so no killing him over her. "Damn it." Lubbock shouted in dismay. "Why is it always you, Tatsumi? Not only have you stolen all of the women here, but Esdeath too. What the fuck, man? What's your secret and why the hell won't you share it?" The cry of pain from the previous howler preceded Leon's exasperated voice, "Will you just give it a rest, Lubbock? Tatsumi survived probably the most harrowing night of his life and you haven't shut up since you guys got back." Naruto then poked his head around the corner and chimed in, "Actually, I'd like to know how the kid got her to take him home too, Leon." In the next instant Naruto dodged the sudden energy blast from Pumpkin and watched the same kid from the tournament spit his tea on the same girl who'd shot at him. The pink-haired girl then turned her tea-covered head around slowly and menacingly, glared at the brown-haired boy while he had the good grace to look sheepish. "Sensei," Akame declared happily and then got another flick on the nose. "Sorry, sensei." And again she was flicked. "Oh, it's just you, Root," Leon drawled while sounding completely unimpressed at his late arrival. "You're a little later than you said you'd be." "Yeah. Sorry about that," the whiskered man apologized. "I ran into a little trouble on the way here. On the plus side though I can honestly say the cross-tail barrier's pretty well made out there." "Wait," the green-haired young man in the room stopped the fuss. "You mean to say that you not only were able to see my barrier but also avoid it?" He then received a nod and clarified, "And you're this Naruto Akame wouldn't shut up about and you're the one who pranked Leon yesterday." "What's he talking about, Ni-san?" Tatsumi looked towards the blonde woman, but she instead of answering just turned away to hide the embarrassed flush while they heard mine stifle a few chuckles. "Yep. That was me," Naruto nodded to the green-eyed youth in confirmation. The green blur dashed across the room and Lubbock grasped both hands over one of Naruto's and began shaking it so fast it left afterimages in the air. Tears of joy escaped the youth's green eyes and he exclaimed, "I am so happy to finally meet you. You finally made her pay for all the pain she puts me through whenever she catches me while she's bathing." Naruto looked at the young man oddly and simply pointed out, "You know that there's a pretty simple way to avoid that pain while still seeing the glory of a woman's nude body, correct? Please teach me, oh master." "Just don't get caught," the man revealed to them all with a simple nod. Lubbock froze completely after hearing the suggestion. He then suddenly howled out, "Why didn't I ever think of that? You truly are as great as Akame said you were." Everyone watching the scene besides Tatsumi because he looked completely and utterly dumbfounded by everything going on around him and a seriously nodding Akame sweat dropped at seeing this play out. "And we have another pervert here." "Great," Mine commented with a roll of her oddly pink eyes. Wait just a second here." Tatsumi screamed and everyone's attention went over to him. "What the hell is going on around here?" Leon blinked dumbly and then realized, "Oh, that's right. We haven't told you yet, but this asshole over here is gonna be working with us from here on," she informed the brown-haired teen with a jab of her thumb at the pouting Naruto. "How many times must I say it?" Naruto grumbled petulantly. "You attacked me and all I did was entirely out of self-defense. Don't blame me for your pride getting hurt." "I can't believe it," Tatsumi mumbled hollowly while Leon shot back at Naruto. "Not even 5 minutes and it's like he's always been here." "Weirdos are my specialty, kid," Naruto told him after suddenly appearing at his side and slapping his back, making the boy jump in shock and everyone blink at the sight of his speed. "And if you think these guys are bad then you should have seen the crew I had when I was just starting out. Aside from the pink eyesore over there this group's leaps and bounds better than mine." "Boy." Mine shouted indignantly. She then pulled Pumpkin back out and leveled it even with the unfazed man's face. She growled at him, "Who's a pink eyesore again?" The whiskered assassin merely blinked at the glowing muzzle in front of his face before turning towards Akame and asking while pointing, "Why's Flatty over here got Pumpkin instead of Nagenda?" Tatsumi gaped at him in shock, Mine's face turned purple in her fury, and Leon and Lubbock both fell over laughing at his remark. "You're dead." Mine shrieked and started chasing Naruto while blowing gigantic holes in the walls. Naruto effortlessly ducked under a beam aimed at his head and Akame informed him, "Boss gave Mine Pumpkin because Mine was a much better sniper than her and no other Tigu seemed to like her." "But that personality," he commentated while leaping over a dumbfounded Tatsumi who had to suddenly duck in order to also evade Mine's shot, "I'm wondering how even Pumpkin likes her." "Watch it, Mine." Tatsumi shouted at her angrily with his hair smoking and missing a few strands. "That nearly got me too." "Then maybe you shouldn't have gotten in the way then." Mine shot back heatedly and they both got in each other's faces. "Or better yet, why didn't you try and stop him?" "Ah, young love," Naruto mused while wiping an imaginary tear from his eye but was unheard by the pair of raising voices. To be that age again he then stopped cold and amended, "Wait. I hated puberty. Like hell I wanna go through that shit again." "You know," Lubbock grinned while he threw an arm around Naruto's shoulders in a brotherly show of companionship, "I think we're gonna be great friends, Naruto." "You think so?" Naruto grinned back with an identical toothy smile and he also noticed Leon roll her eyes at the pair of them. "Sensei," Akame called to him and she was predictably flicked in the nose once more. She didn't even seem to register it this time and she continued with an odd nervousness to her voice, can we please talk outside? There's something I need to tell you and get off my chest." Everyone stopped what they were doing, even Tatsumi and Mine stopped their squabbling and stared at the dark-haired girl in a mix of shock and curiosity. Naruto raised an eyebrow at her and he nodded, "Sure. No problem, Akame. I've wanted to tell you something for a few years as well, and this seems like a good enough opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings. Thanks, she nodded gratefully while shifting nervously, thus making every other present Night Raid member look at her with widened eyes. The red-eyed girl then walked out of the room and was followed by her former instructor, while he felt every eye follow them both leave the area. The pair walked out of the base, and she led him around for a few minutes until they reached a relatively secluded and private area. Naruto looked at her and started it off by asking, "Well, what is it, Akame? You asked me out here." The teenage girl awkwardly rubbed her arm and looked away nervously. I don't really know how to say it," she admitted hesitantly. "You've never been one to worry about that stuff," Naruto pointed out. He then offered her, "Why don't you just not bother thinking about it and act like how I taught you to do when you're not certain about something?" She looked up at him with a fond expression at his words. "Thanks, sensei," she expressed softly. She then took in a deep breath and started to recite, "I've always looked up to you, sensei. You took me and Kurumin and gave us a home we actually wanted to return to for the first time in our lives, and I can't ever repay you for that. You always pushed all of us beyond our limits and wanted nothing but our best. To this day I still believe in your words. Nothing is more important than the people you hold precious in your heart. All I am now I owe to you, Sen Naruto," she finally managed to say, prompting a grin from him which she faintly returned. "When what happened occurred I was shocked. I couldn't believe you'd done that, and yet we were shown what seemed to be irrefutable proof at the time. All of us were greatly saddened by your perceived betrayal," she admitted while her grip on her arm tightened slightly. "I'm sorry for this, but I then vowed that I would use your own lessons and that I would surpass and consign you for what we believed you did to us that day. When we met again 3 years ago I finally couldn't hold it back anymore and I said such hurtful things that day. All those years of frustration just finally bubbled over and I lost all control. I shamed you and your teachings that day when I let my emotions guide my hand. Even then you never raised your blade at me and I. But my greatest failure was when I didn't believe in your very first and greatest lesson, Naruto. I never trusted my heart," she admitted and sniffed once. Naruto elected to just let her get all of this off her chest instead of interrupting her, so she kept going. "You always told us to follow our heart when our mind disagrees and I didn't believe my heart. In my heart," she continued while a hand rested over her chest, "I knew you'd have never betrayed us the way they told us that you did, and for that I am greatly sorry, Naruto. You were my one place of safety and I failed to ever realize it until she came back carrying your blade like a trophy and then I was certain that you died. For the first time," she revealed with wetness staining the corner of her eyes, "I felt my heart truly ache, Naruto, and you were right about how there's no greater pain than the loss of a loved one. I've lost many comrades and cried over each, but no pain has ever even come close to that day. It was after that when I met the boss and she convinced me that you'd been the one betrayed by the capital and I decided to leave, so I stole your sword and I swore I'd carry it like you would and that I'd make you proud of me, even if you couldn't see me. What I'm trying to say," the young woman steered herself back towards her original goal, "is that I'm really sorry for ever doubting you, Naruto-sensei, and now I suppose I can finally get this off of my chest at last." Akame then closed her eyes, took a deep breath to steady herself, and reopened her crimson orbs with a shining determination in them. The former student next unbuckled her tigu from her side, held it out in front of her like a knight would to their patron while taking a knee, and finished at last, "I wish to return your blade to you." The 4 other members of Night Raid each then face faulted down onto the rocky ground from the trees they'd been hiding in. "Oh come on." Lubbock shouted in disappointment. "We thought we were finally gonna see something good, and this is what we get." Mine then agreed loudly, "Yeah. Don't you know what's supposed to happen with this atmosphere, Akame?" "Well, this is Akame we're talking about here," Leon grumped while dusting her legs off. "True," Tatsumi nodded in solemn agreement. "She can't read the setting at all." Akame just blinked confusedly at everyone and she asked dumbly, "Just what did you guys think I was going to do?" Amused chuckles brought her attention over to her former teacher and he said, "I think I can guess. You guys thought that she was about to confess, didn't you?" A chorus of affirmative nods came from everyone else, forced his chuckles to then become full-blown laughter. The red-eyed girl just looked at him confusedly and asked for clarification, "Confess what, Naruto-sensei? I haven't done anything wrong, have I?" "Oh, don't worry about it, Akame," he dismissed the query with a wave of his hand, and that was the end of that. He was still stifling his giggles and told her, "It doesn't really matter at the moment anyway. But about what you just offered me." He looked directly into her eyes with a serious look and asked, "Are you certain that you wish to do that?" The girl in the sleeveless dress nodded once resolutely and reiterated to him, "I am absolutely certain. I decided that in the slim chance that you weren't actually dead and we ever met again that I would return what is rightfully yours. I was never given or earned Murasame, so it is still not mine by rite of passage." I was afraid that it would go right over your pretty little head, Naruto exhaled in exhaustion, making the girl blink at him in confusion at his words. He then informed her, me letting Esdeath carry Murasame back that day was me passing Murasame on to you, Akame. This revelation led to a stunned intake of breath from the girl wielding his former weapon. Her hand started shaking while they still held the sheath and she tried to say, then you. You proved it was time when we fought that day, Akame, he revealed to her. Matter of fact I had intended on giving Murasame to you that very day, but I realized that you'd probably never accept it from me as you were, so I waited and decided to send it back at the first opportunity. Yes, he started listening to her, you let your emotions overrule your ration that day, but even then you were still an adequate match. I could tell from when our blades crossed that you hadn't abandoned my teachings and that you were already a match for just about anyone in the capital. You did actually manage to cut me, after all, he chuckled nostalgically. But that was only because you never went on the offensive that day. Akame protested. Because I was testing you, Akame, he reaffirmed sternly, brokering no arguments with his tone. The whiskered blonde then walked across the small area, pushed the sheathed blade down, and told her, you're the one I chose to succeed me, Akame. You've turned into a very pretty and downright gorgeous girl, albeit you're still even more dense than I ever was at your age, but even then your dance is just as deadly and twice as beautiful as mine has never been. I have my own strengths, and swordplay was never my forte, that was always you two sisters, but you were undoubtedly the better. Murasame is forevermore yours until you choose to pass it on, Akame, and nothing will ever change that. A slight gust of wind blew her dark bangs away from her face and revealed her teary eyes, brimming with happiness and pride at hearing his words. She nodded in gratitude to him after a few minutes, and she clutched the crimson sheathed blade closer to her chest. Thank you, she murmured once. The girl then had a few tears of absolute joy fall from her eyes, and she repeated, thank you, Naruto-sensei. Thank you. Naruto's face softened and a gentle smile appeared on his face. He laid a hand atop her head while she hugged the blade even closer to her chest and continued to thank him for his trust and faith in her. You earned it, he promised her. You really did. Just what did we just see happen? Tatsumi asked the other members. Why's Akame crying over that? Lubbock answered him with no humor present, because she just received the greatest gift any student can receive from their master. Their legacy, Leon finished with her face showing her surprise at what they'd just seen. Naruto hugged his disciple and whispered a few last words to her too low for anyone to overhear, and she went stiff in response. She then looked up and into his eyes, and her crimson orbs showed a steely determination in them that she showed with an equally determined nod. I will try, Akame answered his request. It will not be easy though. I know that, the blonde man had a pained smile on his face as he stood back up to his full height. All traces of sadness then left his face and he turned around towards the spectators with a huge grin on his face. So I hear you guys throw a pretty serious bash around here. How much booze you guys got stocked up? 'Cause I'll drink you all under the table. Oh yeah? Lubbock and Leon looked riled up at the challenge. You're damn straight. Naruto shouted at them all excitedly. And you, he pointed at the confused Tatsumi, you're getting in on it too. I will not have any man under my name not be able to hold his liquor. You're going to show me just why Esdeath chose you. Over to the side mine asked Akame while she was composing herself again, would he just bring up Esdeath, Akame? Akame just looked over at the steadily rising volume of the four people across the way and then looked at mine. She then answered, did you not know? Sensei is in love with her. Eh? Way to spill the beans, Akame, Naruto grumbled while everyone else just looked at him like he'd truly grown a second and third head and then attempted to reverence with each of them. He then glared at the shrinking form of a sweating Tatsumi, attempting to hide behind his former student. Tatsumi gulped and thought out loud, why do I get the sudden feeling I need to run very far very fast right now? Chapter 4. Akame's eyes continually shifted around the area she and her sister had reached. Humongous trees with no top in sight surrounded them and the scent of blood coated the air. One-Ichan Kurum timidly called to her. It hurts. The older girl turned and looked at her 7-year-old sibling. Both of them were coated with blood that came from both the forest's own animals and even a few other children whom had tried to kill them first. Crimson dripped off Kurum's fingers while she gripped her left ankle. We're almost there, Kurum, Akame repeated once more to reassure the smaller girl. She'd lost count of how many times she'd said that. Just a little more and we're out of here. It hurts, the black-eyed girl sniffed. Akame turned away from the forest and kneeled down next to her sister. Her unique red eyes met her sibling's dark ones and she asked, can you walk? It hurts, Kurum whimpered. I don't think I can. The elder sibling forced her mind to be quiet of its resentful thoughts directed towards the parents whom had sold them to this fate and turned her back to her sibling. Get on, she then ordered gently. I won't leave you, Kurum. I'll carry you the rest of the way. We can't stay here any longer. Those bad things will come back, won't they? Kurum asked while she climbed onto her sister's back. Probably, she didn't bother denying it. She wrapped her hands under her sister's legs and stood up. We have to keep moving, she finished and began to trek through the dangerous area again. Kurum snuggled her face into her older sister's neck and her arms tightened slightly around her neck. One-chan, she whispered, please don't ever abandon me too. Akame's eyes hardened after hearing that, revealing her anger, and she promised, I won't, Kurum. I swear. Now let's please stop talking unless we need to. Keep watch and let me know if anything comes at us, okay? Okay, Kurum murmured and then raised her head to help watch for any other potential attackers approach. The pair of sisters then descended into silence while Akame continued to walk across the forest floor. For a few minutes the only sound was Akame's footfalls crunching sticks and dried leaves. She felt her little sister shiver once they passed a fellow child whose face had been eaten off of their head. The crimson-eyed girl locked her gaze forward and continued to go in the direction she believed they were supposed to go. She knew her sister needed some kind of reassurance after seeing that, so she then tightened her hold on her sibling's small legs. Kurum responded to this by whimpering quietly and pulling herself closer to her sister's protection. After another silent eternity had passed, Akame's eyes widened at what she saw. A rush of excitement and relief washed over her and she subconsciously began to speed up her hurting legs' pace. Kurum, she had to keep herself from shouting and leaping in joy, look. We're almost out now. At finally hearing the words they'd both wanted to hear, the girl's eyebrows shot up and hid beneath her bangs. Is it finally over? Kurum asked in a tone that showed her disbelief. Are we finally done? We're done, Kurum, Akame answered her once she'd finally seen the late evening sky and the giant trees flood her side at long last. She never turned her head and kept walking forward and away from the hell they'd just gleefully abandoned behind them. You can rest now. Her sister's head fell against her shoulders then and she mumbled, One-chan sleepy. Camp's just ahead, she told her. She shifted her sister's body for a slightly better grip and assured the younger girl, you're safe, Kurum. I hope, she silently added, not wishing to place any additional worries on her sister's already stressed mind. Akame had come away impressed by how Kurum had handled herself in the woods. Overcoming her fear and distress while staving off any potential mental breakdown. Kurum nuzzled closer to her sister's neck and closed her eyes due to the sheer, complete exhaustion the experience had forced upon her small body. Akame grimaced once since she was also beginning to feel her own pain now that the adrenaline had ceased its constant flow, but she forced her mind to ignore the aches and focused on climbing the last hill in order to find a place of rest, even if it was only perceived and temporary. Nearly there, the girl grit her teeth in concentration. The collection of imperial tents continued to creep closer and she encouraged herself, just a few more steps. Eventually, she finally crossed over the camp's boundary and nearly let out a sigh in relief. Instead, she didn't allow herself to show any weakness to her observers and glared defiantly at every single member of the imperial staff she saw. The pair of siblings were soon set upon by a few men with cowls covering their faces and were whisked into an unoccupied tent. Akame continued to stare directly at each imperial surrounding them until all of the men left and the two sisters were left alone at long last. After a few brief moments of silence, she finally let out the sigh in relief she'd been postponing and the culmination of exhaustion crashed over her entire small body. The red-eyed sister gently rustled her sibling on her back and called softly, Kurum, we're here. Wake up. Don't want to, the younger girl responded sleepily. The smaller girl's arms tightened over her sister and her head nuzzled even further into Akame's neck. Realizing that her sister wouldn't willingly separate herself from her, Akame sighed and just walked over to the comfy-looking bed their tent came furnished with. She then sat on the bedside, laid down on the goose-down mattress and waited for Kurum to react. A few more minutes went by in relative silence until the sound of Kurum rustling the bed's covers appeared. The younger one's grip on her sister loosened and Akame then turned her body over, facing her sister directly and wrapping her own arms around her bedmate. The black-eyed girl cuddled her head into the crook of Akame's neck and Akame rested her chin atop Kurum's still bloody head. One-chan, Kurum called out softly. I'm here, she repeated while running her hands down her sister's shaking back. I'm still here, Kurum, and I will not ever go anywhere else. I will always be here for you. Silence then descended over the tent once again with Akame continuing to stroke her sibling's back in order to comfort the distraught and exhausted girl. Kurum's breathing eventually steadied into a slow, deep rhythm and Akame heard light snoring at last. She must really be tired, she observed silently with a small smile. Her own eyelids started to feel heavy as she thought, so sleepy. We have to be quick, her tired, sharp ears heard a man whisper from just outside the tent's flap, making her eyes shoot open in alarm. We don't want them relying on each other. Before Akame could even move, the tent's entrance was thrown open and four shadow-covered figures stormed in. She managed to quickly process what was about to happen and pulled her sibling to her chest protectively as she sat up in the bed and glared as menacingly as she still could at the intruders. Kurum was startled by her sudden tight hold and her confused voice asked, "Wani-chan?" "Leave," Akame growled with as much fury as she could still muster. "We survived your test, we earned our rest." One of the figures approached them with his green eyes shining malevolently at the pair of young girls. "Oh, you'll get your rest, little girl," the man informed her with a patronizing tone, "but you'll have to wait a little bit for that. You and your sister there won't be seeing each other for a good, long while." "You can't do that." Kurum screamed at them. "You can't take Wani-chan from me." Akame cautiously positioned Kurum behind her and sharply stared at the four chuckling men. She knew that the odds were minuscule for her to defeat all four full-grown men normally, not to mention her current state of physical and emotional exhaustion. "You'll find," a man with horrifying grey eyes told them, "we can do whatever we want." He then made to move and grab Kurum's arm and Akame reacted instinctively. The crimson-eyed girl pulled her small dagger from her hip and stabbed it down through his hand. The man wrenched his profusely bleeding hand, dagger still protruding, away from her so fast that he managed to force her off balance. In the next instant his other fist came around and slammed into the side of her face, sending her sprawling off of the bed and onto the floor. "Wani-chan." Her sister cried in worry. "Fucking bitch," the stabbed man snarled as he pulled the dagger from his palm and tossed it aside. He then stomped over and placed his heel over her hand that had stabbed him, forcing her to bite her cheek to prevent an outcry of pain. His still bleeding hand reached over her face and began to drip his crimson blood onto her face, making the other side of her head red as well, and growled, "Feel proud of yourself, do you? Did you really think you could keep us from doing what we want, little girl? Here's your first lesson in our job. The strong win and the weak die or do as they're told. Don't think you're special because you managed to survive that little walk through the woods with your sister unlike 203 others." He pushed his heel down on her hand and she continued to glare up defiantly into his seedy eyes. He smirked down at her, "Oh ho. Your training is going to be fun, girl. I'll be sure to make you nice and docile." "Wani-chan." "Shut your mouth." One of the others shouted and backhanded her sister across the face, sending her off of the bed and tumbling onto the floor. "You'll both learn your places soon, but I suppose I could handle your training myself though," he finished with a hungry look in his eyes as they roved the dark-eyed girl's body. Kurum whimpered in fear and Akame's eyes widened when the implications of the man's words set in. The older sibling's blood-red eyes went even colder than the northern winters and she immediately tried to free herself so she could kill the sick pervert before Kurum was hurt. The man holding her down stomped on her stomach with his booted heel, forcing all the wind to leave her body and leaving her gasping for air in pain. He chuckled before saying, "Hey, Alistair, it seems your tastes got a little rise out of this one. Too bad you won't get to take her too, eh?" The sick man glanced back towards the other girl on the ground and leered, "Yeah. It's really too bad. Two at once and sisters to boot. One of my dreams so close." "We need to get going," one of the other two men chimed in warningly. "We don't have much time here." "I suppose you're right," the man above her frowned in the tense darkness. He then reached his bloody hand down, gripped Akame's face tightly, and lifted her off the floor. "You should feel proud though, girl, that the bastard in charge seems to want you for some reason." "Let's go," Alistair called to him as he picked Kurum up off of the ground and tossed her over his shoulder. "Our window's closing." "No." Kurum shrieked. She vainly flailed about, scratching and kicking at her captor, and reached out to her elder sibling. "Wani-chan." "Kurum." Well, a chilling voice that hadn't been present before cut in with enough power behind it to stop everyone inside the tent cold. "Just what have I found here?" "Shit," Alistair cursed lowly. He quickly turned and ordered his allies, "Go out there and distract him. I don't need much time, 2 minutes and I'll be long gone and away. Stylish's payment will make up for any injuries so go." Alistair, the same condescending voice echoed within the tent. "Did you really think I wasn't aware of your plans?" "Fuck you, Millard," he snarled out before pinching Kurum's neck and making her go limp on his shoulder. "You don't get to change how things are done just cause of who your daddy happened to be." Alistair then looked at the three others and shouted, "What are you doing? Deal with him." The grip around Akame's head loosened just a bit and she was finally able to think coherently through the haze of agony and debilitation. Just before the man completely let go of her, she drove her bare left foot directly into the fork of his legs, digging it into his genitals all the while. The nameless brute let out a small grunt in pain and let go of her with his knees shaking. Akame's feet hit the dirt below her. She immediately rolled away from the man, evading his attempt to capture her again. She stopped next to her discarded dagger and gripped it tightly. The furious elder sibling finally brandished the weapon back towards the man she'd already injured, fully prepared to end the man's existence. She was brought up short, however, when a spray of warm liquid completely covered her form from behind. The coppery scent and taste coated her entire small body while she heard two large thuds hit the ground behind her. The crimson-soaked girl's head slowly creaked around behind her and she saw a vertically bisected man's two halves directly behind her. There was one behind me and I didn't even realize until it was too late, she realized in a mix of shock, fear, and awe as her eyes widened. The red-eyed girl suppressed a gulp while she concluded, I should be dead, but whoever that man is seems to have saved me. Why? She heard two shocked pained gasps before she even was able to turn her head back around to where the other men were. Akame Simple stared on, amazed and slightly intrigued by the sight as she witnessed the two other men's heads fall off of their bodies. Their fresh corpses fountained crimson while both of them fell to the floor, staining it with even more blood. Standing inside the brief rain of blood, yet remaining completely unblemished by the liquid surrounding them all, was a young man Akame had never seen before. He had short, spiky blonde hair and icy blue eyes that nearly made her shudder in fear when she saw the sheer amount of pure fury behind them. She wasn't amazing at guessing a person's age by appearance yet, but she believed he couldn't have been even 20, yet a sharp contrast to the men he'd just made such short work of, even though they could have even been twice his age. It must really be my birthday, the blonde whispered with a smirk with his blade dripping onto the floor into the puddles of blood. I've wanted to get rid of the rest of Gazuki's cronies, but Honest would have never given me the okay. Since I just caught all four of you openly defying my direct order, though, I think the fat shit wouldn't mind too terribly now. You wouldn't, Alistair began but was permanently silenced when a flash of steel pierced his heart. His body went limp and fell to the floor, but before she could fall to the floor with the corpse, the mysterious savior plucked Kurum from his shoulder and set her on the bed. Akame just stared, shocked, at the man who'd just dispatched 4 trained assassins, as if they'd been no more powerful than mere ants were. She sat frozen on the ground, still attempting to process everything she had seen, until she heard her sister groan. She quickly dashed across the room and to her sister's side while crying, Kurum. Kurum. Kurum, speak to me. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? She'll be perfectly fine, the lone still living male informed her, making her head whirl towards him. The nerve I'll pinch'll keep her out for a few hours, but otherwise it doesn't do a thing to a person. Aside from a slight headache when she wakes up she'll be fine. Kurum then surprised them both with a groan, Wani-chan. Akame immediately turned her head back to her sibling and grasped one of her sister's shivering hands. I'm here, Kurum, she answered shakily. I'm right here. The girl's eyes managed to open a fraction and she turned her head towards her sibling. I'm so glad, she told her weakly. I thought I was never going to see you again. The red-eyed girl felt her heart ache when she heard that admission. A single tear that contained all of her pent-up anger and hopelessness of the past few weeks since they'd been sold trailed down her cheek. She then reiterated for her sister with more conviction than she'd ever used before, I won't leave you, Kurum. I will always be there for you. I swear it. I'm so Wani-chan, Kurum managed to say before her eyes closed and she finally succumbed to the tireless pull of unconsciousness. The blue-eyed youth looked at the girl lying on the bed with an eyebrow raised, showing how impressed he was by the sight he'd just witnessed. He then observed almost to himself, she remained conscious through sheer force of will just so she could be certain she was still with her sister. Wow. It's good to know I was right about the two of you, he finished with a bright smile. Akame wiped the wet stain from her face, turned towards the blonde, and asked him, what do you mean by that? He sprouted a wry grin at that and responded that keeping the two of you girls together would not weaken you, but it would instead strengthen the both of you further than ever before. Take her for instance, he gestured to the softly snoring Kurum. That nerve cluster should have rendered her completely immobile and unaware for an hour at the absolute best, yet she somehow managed to fight against that and managed to hold it off for 5 full minutes just because she wanted to be sure you were still there. If that's not true strength then I don't know what is. The elder sibling felt pride now that someone else had recognized her sister's strength for the first time aside from herself. She lowered her head, covering her eyes with her bangs, and she murmured, thank you, sir, for helping us when you did. Had you not, she trailed off, unable to even speak of such revolting possibilities. The blonde man smiled down at her and tossed a towel on top of her head. There's a bath set and ready for you, Akame-chan, he told her. Wash yourself up. You and your sister are going to be sleeping in my tent with me until we move out in 2 days' time. There's a lot of people here whom still think Kazuki did things right even though I killed the rat bastard 2 weeks ago. If it weren't for all of them you wouldn't have had to endure that blasted forest like I had to at your age. Wait, Akame called to him as he turned and began to leave. Before you leave, can you please tell me who are? The man stopped at the entrance, turned towards her, and smiled gently, my name's Naruto, Akame-chan, although you're probably going to be calling me a whole bunch of other less polite names for the next few years. I'm going to be yours and Kurum-sensei. Now hurry up and get cleaned, Akame-chan, and then you and your sister come to my tent in the center of camp. Just say Naruto told us to come here and they let you through. You also shouldn't need to worry about any other surprises since I've got my own men surrounding all of the survivors now. Make sure you prepare yourself though, he added with a mischievous yet somehow grim grin. You're going to become strong, the both of you, but you'll have to go through hell so intense it'll make that forest look like a stroll through the park to get there. But that being said, he then walked out and closed the tent flap behind him, the stench of 4 dead fools trapped within alongside the 2 sisters. Became. Her eyes shot open at hearing the whisper so close to her ear and she instinctually pulled her tigu out. In the same movement she slashed at the foreign presence in the room but felt no contact with flesh. Eesh. If you don't like being woken up then you didn't need to try and kill me. Good info for the boss though. The young woman was finally able to notice just who was in her room and quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Naruto-sensei. It is just my first instinct whenever someone infiltrates my room. Oh, I'm not your sensei, the man informed her. She blinked in confusion at his words while he added, it's a long complex story, but needless to say your sensei is even more of a badass than you remember him being. Okay, Akame nodded uncertainly. Did the alcohol affect you more than you let on, Naruto-sensei? The blonde made to correct her again, but instead just shook his head and mumbled, you know what? I'm not going to even try right now. Look, he then started and the seriousness behind his gaze told her that this was important, the base has been infiltrated and is under attack. Her crimson eyes widened in surprise briefly at hearing this and then went sharp. She sent her mind into full battle mode and she felt the air vibrations for confirmation. You're right, Naruto-sensei, she agreed with his assessment. We need to rouse the others before it's too late. They're already up and moving as we speak, he told her, briefly causing her to wonder how he knew that precisely. Leon's out for the moment, but Lionel'll ensure she's back in a bit from that little surprise attack. Tatsumi's certain these are one of the Yiger's members' personal army, but he didn't say which. Mine's taking up residence atop the building to snipe the enemy, and Lubbock's running this way to make sure you and boss are safe. He'll be here in a few seconds with a few dozen enemies hot on his tail. Akame's trained mind digested all of this information calmly and she nodded, then we need to help him, Naruto-sensei. The whiskered man then opened her bedroom door and gestured, ladies first, Akame. She ran out into the hall and heard him add, oh, and boss will be out in about 10 seconds. She then heard a pop behind her and turned only to find the man no longer present. Akame quickly shook her head of her wonder at how he'd so completely hidden his presence from her and instead brandished Murasame in the direction she heard Lubbock coming from. A few seconds ticked by in her head before the green-haired male of Night Raid barreled around the corner with at least 20 enemies hot on his trail. Akame. Lubbock shouted over the noise. We're under attack. Get behind me. She immediately ordered and he complied. She stood between the oncoming force and her teammate with her subconsciously gripping her hands tighter on the eager blade's hilt. Sensei informed me about everything that's going on, Lubba. I can handle all of them. The group stopped a dozen yards from the 2 assassins and glared hatefully at them. Akame quickly realized that they weren't going to charge her and decided to take the fight to them so that she and Lubba could get away and assist the others as soon as possible. She stopped after taking one step, however, when she saw a door open between her enemies and out walked a yawning Naruto. Her mind froze at the sight and she thought in a frenzy, that's not possible. Sensei just woke me up and briefed me on the situation, so how? The whiskered assassin's eyes fluttered open and he noticed her. Oh. Morning, Akame. You too, Lubbock, he greeted them both with a lazy wave, seemingly oblivious to the danger directly behind him. One hell of a night last night and I was so close to scoring with Leon too. Lubbock's jaw had fallen open and was hitting the floor after seeing how blasé Naruto was acting in the face of overwhelming death. The youth managed to shake off his bemusement and quickly brandished his tigu, cross-tail, in preparation of the coming battle. Without preamble Akame dashed across the hall and blocked her former teacher from a sneak attack and kicked the person away. She was prevented from continuing on the offensive, however, when she was suddenly pulled off of her feet and found herself held off of the ground and eye-to-eye with the man. Now, Akame, Naruto scolded her tiredly, I know I taught you better than that. When someone greets you what are you supposed to do in return? Greet the same way, she immediately rattled off without thinking. The team then tried to tell him, but right now. Then you need to respond to my greeting, Naruto concluded with a stern glance. Tell me good morning so that we can start the day. Akame briefly considered whether her teacher had finally gone completely insane since he didn't even seem to register the potential danger at his back, but she eventually sighed in resignation in the face of his expected stubbornness and mumbled, good morning to you too, Naruto. But girl, he chirped with a bright nod. Without seeming to notice the enemies behind him, he stepped forward and out of reach from the next blindside assault on his person and finished, now did you get good sleep? Have any good dreams? Before she could respond to him Lubbock shrieked, what the fuck, man? Do you really not care there's 20 freaking 8 people directly behind you that want to kill you? The cerulean-eyed man blinked twice and asked him while jabbing his thumb over his shoulder, you mean all these small fry? I figured it wouldn't matter since none of them could even hope to touch Akame here, let alone me. Do you not understand that we are under attack? Alright, the man groused grumpily. He put Akame back on the ground and instructed her, now stay right there, Akame. This won't take long. His form then disappeared right in front of every pair of eyes and reappeared in the exact same spot not even a full second later. After another heartbeat past 28 heads fell from their accompanying shoulders and the new bodies sprayed the walls crimson as they clumped to the floor in moss. Naruto dusted his hands on his shirt and continued on like nothing had changed, now where were we? Before anything else could be said he sent a dagger flying directly over Lubbock's head, making him duck it into his shirt and it pierced another masked enemy directly between the eyes. Lubbock pulled his head out from hiding and harumphed, I knew he was there, you know. The wheels on his hands whirred and the man's limbs were torn from their sockets to illustrate his claim. Thanks though I guess. One of the man's eyebrows rose and he asked the other male, you're not surprised or even amazed the slightest at my abilities. If you taught that monster over there, he shrugged with a nod towards Akame, then not in the slightest. She claimed you could fight Esdeath and even Najenda-san before her injury on even ground and I know that Akame's never been one to overstate anything. You're definitely 10 times more crazy than she said though, he finished with a rather sly grin. Naruto shrugged, but they were prevented from continuing their conversation by the sound of another person approaching. From the fact they were suppressing their presence, Akame immediately pieced together, we've got another enemy coming, and this one isn't as weak as the other ones were. Akame turned and sped towards Lubbock and deflected a blade from his back. She then swung her Tigu and separated one more blank-faced enemy's head from their shoulders. Her crimson eyes were as sharp as her blade as they rose and stared at another opponent, though this one had an entirely different feeling about him. Lubbock immediately distanced himself from the man, and Akame demanded, who are you? The man bowed politely and introduced himself, you may call me Toby, Akame. He then asked, I would like to request a formal duel between myself and you. Akame was slightly confused by his demeanor, but nodded anyway. The man grinned and then, without another word spoken, dashed towards her and slashed an axe blade down at her head. Her blade met his, and they stayed in a stalemate for a brief instance until he opened his mouth and a gun barrel extended out from his throat. The girl's eyes briefly widened at the sight but kept her cool about her and didn't panic. She immediately spun away from the fired bullet and in the same movement separated the enemy's left arm from the shoulder. She then started to walk away from her latest kill, believing in Murasame's sure kill poison, but the serious look on her teacher's face made her stop. Lubbock shouted in warning, Akame. She immediately ducked under the blade swung at her neck and rolled away from her somehow still alive foe. Akame stood once more, mercilessly squashed the brief confusion in her head and calmly analyzed her opponent. There's no blood, she noted with an internal frown. Odd, but not quite as odd as the sword now where his arm just was. I see, she realized and held her blade towards Toby once again. Interesting. Your entire body is a machine, isn't it? That's why Murasame's poison didn't kill you. Toby smiled at her and nodded, indeed. Very astute. As expected of you, Akame. That is why I was chosen to do battle with you over the others. Your weapon cannot kill me. The assassin simply shifted her stance slightly into a more reactionary one and held her blade horizontally below her chin. There are other means to consign targets, she informed him. Her body then flashed behind him and his other arm fell from his side. If I can't kill you with the poison then I'll just chop you to pieces. She finished as she whirled around and slashed at his neck. Toby sprouted a machine gun from his now empty shoulder and held Murasame off with his other sword arms flat. Akame was winning the contest of strength but was forced to disengage quickly when his large gun was then directed her way. She moved at speeds no normal human would believe possible while she deflected the hail of lead with Murasame away from her body and completely evaded the others. Akame heard a pair of large crashes behind her but didn't bother to view the potential new threats. If they attempted to interfere with her fight then she was certain that both Lubbock and Naruto would deal with them. Instead, she increased her focus on her dual mate and began to calculate every possible ability her foe could possess and each likely weakness to them all. His skill are sharp but not elite, possibly as good as Tatsumi when I first encountered him, she analyzed. In that I am far superior, but the ability to turn any and every body part into a potential arsenal of weaponry means I have to be on guard at all times. She felt a rush of excitement at meeting such a foe after so long without, but she contained herself to only a single twitch of her cheek. Come, she eventually stated without emotion. Toby obliged with two sharp semicircular blades sprouting from the bottom of his feet and using them to skate across the stone floor as if he were on ice. When he reached striking distance a lengthy blade protruded from his shin and that leg was sent at her side. She immediately blocked it with Murasame and then rolled away when his bladed heel was spun around and directed towards her chin. She was back to her feet before either of his touched the floor and she used that one instant of weakness to separate his torso from his legs. He truly is a machine, Akame frowned as his legs landed away from the main body and rolled another few yards away. You truly do not feel any pain, do you, Tobi-san? Her foe's torso landed on its front and he rolled himself over onto his back. Tobi looked directly at her and used his sword arm and firearm to push his torso up to where he was now upright and facing her directly. No, he admitted with a glance sent at his legs across the hall. Tobi chuckled once in resignation to his fate and spoke, I suppose I never had a chance, did I? I can't reload without my legs and I'm not foolish enough to believe a stationary foe poses any threat to you, Akame. Akame merely tilted her head and told him, you would be wrong on that. Tobi looked at her in shock and she explained like it had been told to her, so long as an enemy draws breath they are a potential threat. My sensei made my sister and I remember that fact, and even if it is a chance of less than 1%, so long as the threat level is not precisely 0, then the threat has not been dealt with. No traps or last gasps will ever defeat either of us because we are on full alert until the kill has been confirmed. The man stared at her for a moment until he suddenly erupted into hysterical laughter. I see now. Tobi exclaimed. He then spat out the knife hidden in his mouth and told her, you truly are the perfect assassin, Akame, an existence beyond normal humans' comprehension. No one would consider me a threat as I am now, yet you do. If I might inquire. How was it you defeated me with such relative ease? Akame began walking towards the condemned man and replied, your attacks were sharp but allowed large holes in your defense for me to counterattack. That's what I believe. Tobi lowered his head in acceptance and mumbled, I suppose that a lack of pain is just as much a curse as a blessing then. Murasame flashed bright in the moonlight and Tobi's head flew into the air. His body fell to its side and the disembodied head rolled away under the moonlight. Akame didn't look back at her newest kill and simply continued to walk towards her former teacher. You did good, Naruto complimented with a nod. You quickly, accurately deduced his abilities with minimal information and defeated him with minimal effort as well. The only thing you failed to check though. Can his head survive without his body attached or the other way around? Akame blinked at the detail she overlooked and strongly scolded herself for not considering such a possibility. He's a machine. Of course he could. She then turned and felt her entire being freeze at what she saw. A perfect copy of Naruto was already confirming her kill. Her head kept going back and forth between the two identical people and continued to reaffirm for her that there were truly two copies of her teacher there. Naruto chuckled at the completely flabbergasted look on her face and told her, I'll explain it all later, Akame. I just don't wish to have to tell all of you and face all your questions and then have to deal in agenda's no doubt lengthy list after. Before you ask. Yes, that is a clone of me. Too many questions to count popped up in her head at witnessing and hearing that revelation, but she quickly righted her mind and nodded, I won't deny I have a lot of things I want to ask about, but I won't ask now, we've got too many other things to deal with at the moment. She then noticed someone's absence and queried, where's Lubbock? He was right here when I started my duel. Naruto waved her off and answered, I sent him on out to the front to help Tatsumi, mine, and Leon start handling the rest of the grunts. I didn't want him interfering here when it really wasn't necessary and he could help the effort better with everyone else. He then suddenly looked out of one of the windows and added almost as an afterthought, oh, and it looks like Najenda finally showed up. I am not looking forward to that talk, he finished with a slight grimace. A sense of relief washed over her and she said, we should join everyone then, Naruto-sensei. With you and now boss here we shouldn't have any problems dealing with this attack now. The blonde man twitched once but nodded, I suppose so. Let's go then, he told her while he readied his fist. Akame realized what he was about to do but couldn't stop him in time from literally punching the wall, creating a hole large enough for the both of them to jump out of. He just turned back and grinned at her, shall we? Akame shook her head and then leaped out of Night Raid's base. She landed in a crouch 2 stories down and then dashed across the grounds to where her friends were all gathered together. Naruto was by her side and observing the large group of enemies surrounding Night Raid just as she arrived. Akame, Tatsumi sighed in relief from inside Incursio's armor. Thank God you're here too. Now this'll be a piece of cake, Leon grinned happily while Lubbock nodded at her. Akame saw mine and felt her eyes widen at what she now carried on her back. She then whispered, welcome home, Shiel. The wave of wooziness then overtook her senses and she felt her equilibrium give way. Akame, Lubbock, mine, and Leon all fell to their knees while the blonde woman cursed, damn it. Knockout gas. You've gotta be fucking kidding me. You just now used this shit, stylish. Akame saw Naruto freeze after hearing that statement and he didn't even react to the approaching enemies in the slightest anymore. How is sensei seemingly immune though? She couldn't help but briefly wonder. I can understand Tatsumi because of Incursio, but why aren't you affected either, sensei? Stylish. The whiskered man repeated in a whisper. Are you certain this is Stylish's doing? I don't see how that matters right now, but yes, Tatsumi confirmed for him while he stood over his immobile comrades. Esdeath told me about his extracurricular activities, and he's the only Jaeger with a personal army here in the capital. Naruto's response was drowned out by a large crash that drew everyone's attention, although Akame's gaze briefly lingered on the shaking Naruto. Before the dust could clear around what had landed, she heard an agenda shout down from the flying manta, Susanoo, destroy all down there not a member of Night Raid. A brief moment passed before she added, and don't harm the man standing next to Akame either. Understood, a powerful male voice answered the call and then dashed out of the smoke. Stylish. Naruto suddenly roared with such ferocity that it seemed to shake the very earth beneath them all. Everyone's eyes turned towards the visibly enraged man and he screamed, I'm going to kill you. He then looked at Akame and she felt her eyes widen at what she saw. Her former teacher then disappeared from the clearing in search of his prey. I've never seen Naruto-sensei so furious before, Akame admitted both to herself and the other members of Night Raid looking towards her for answers. His eyes though that's what worries me, she added to herself silently. They were like mine. They were red blood red. A.N. Warning. This author's note may get rather long. New chapter. Hope you enjoy it. Sorry about any potential grammar mishaps. This was posted without either myself or my beta going over it. I'm literally posting this right after I finish typing it. Yes, this one was exclusively an Akame point of view chapter, I know. If you want Naruto then just be patient. It's coming soon. Professor Farnsworth voice good news, everyone. DRIPLEY11 is done with school until January. I know. This will allow me adequate time to get back to writing, since I no longer have to dedicate myself to books, research papers, essays, bullshit statistics, etc., so I have more time to write. Huzzah. The plan is to put out at least 2 chapters a week for the next few, but I don't know how completely I'll be able to fulfill that one. My plan is this. Finish the intro arc in this story with the next chapter, finish the Razor arc in my DxD crossover, and then finish Narita and my Code G story in that order. After I do all of that I'll probably go back to either my Sekirei story for a bit or my Percy Jackson, could be either one first, but those 2 are next, and then maybe I'll go back to my Naruto story. That manga's ending was just so bad that it has completely ruined my muse for that story. You know, I didn't care if Sasuke was killed or not, all I wanted was for him to actually have to face the consequences of his actions just a little, and I'd have been perfectly fine with that. What do we get? Don't do it again. That was practically exactly what Kakashi said to him. Don't do it again. I really can't get into this right now. If I do then I'd go into an epic rant, the lengths of which would send even the most die-hard Sasuke fanboy girl running for cover. I'd have been happy if they just banished his ass. I didn't need blood, but you not punishing him just enables him. I apologize for that. The ending, no matter how badly it was handled, was done rather well for what it was. I just can't believe Kishimoto was trying to sell his fanbase on how dark the world really was and then pulls that happily ever after shit. Commit to the darkness if you're going to bring it about. That's one of the things I really love about Akame ga Kill because it completely commits to it and has no issues proving that over and over and over and over and over and over again, making you cry all the way. Lubbock, Shield, Bullet, Bolts, Justice Chan, and one other I won't spoil for my readers that haven't read the manga. Back on track though, I would also like to take this chance to inform everyone here that I will not be using any of the recent anime episodes of Akame ga Kill in any way, shape or form in this story unless they actually somewhat reflect the direction of the manga, which I highly doubt due to certain people still being alive in the anime, whom are dead in the manga. To be honest with you all, I haven't watched an episode since 19 because I wanted to be able to breeze through all of the anime original episodes in one go and not stew over how different they were from how I think the manga will go. I can understand not including Wild Hunt because they actually have to be able to show it on TV, but to skip so much. Also, you all will be pleased to know that the expected initial confrontation between Naruto and Esdeath will be the final scene in this intro arc to the story. That means it's in the next chapter, folks. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it and get it out next week, but I make no guarantees due to working retail in the Christmas season, along with the expected family gatherings for the Yuletide time. Hope you liked it. Chapter 5. Naruto crashed into the clearing with such force that he left a crater 10 yards wide. His feral face jumped up towards the group of 4 and he growled, going somewhere, stylish. The mad scientist took a single step back while Naruto stood from his knee. Stylish had a few drops of nervous sweat fall from his brow. Not caring to deal with the fodder, Naruto finally allowed all of his killing intent to obliterate their will. All 3 of Stylish's projects collapsed to the ground, clawing at their throats for air. The three idiots started to cry out in terror in the face of Naruto's full wrath, something no one person had seen before and lived to tell the tale. Almost a decade, Naruto's voice spoke with such overwhelming power that it seemed to be echoing over itself. I warned you about what fate awaited you should you ignore my warning. Did you really believe that didn't matter after I left? Stylish failed to completely regain his composure and stuttered out, I never forced her into. Silence. Naruto roared and the ground quaked beneath their feet with his voice's power. A faint red glow began to cover his body and he continued, you went to Kurum when she was vulnerable and convinced her to accept your drugs. You knew that she wouldn't be able to turn your offer down. And for that, he finished in a chilling whisper, you will die today, Stylish painfully. Stylish shook his head of its terror and responded, I see then. I suppose that I'll have to bring out my best in order to beat you and get away, won't I? Go ahead and try, he taunted back. I want to make you watch as your best gets torn to shreds right in front of you. I will take everything you have and show you just how weak you are and always have been. Stylish smirked at him and pulled out a single syringe that contained a sickening solution within it that seemed semi-sentient. Very well, the scientist agreed. You wish to experience my most stylish product, then here you go. He shouted and stabbed the syringe into his arm. He depressed the plunger and exclaimed, here I come, Naruto. Danger Beast 1 dose. Naruto simply observed, unfazed as Stylish's body began to spasm and bulge. The multicolor-haired man's clothes were torn by how large his muscles became, and a gigantic muscle-bound torso enveloped his body. The crazed scientist sat atop the 5-story-high torso with only his head and upper body now visible. The assassin quickly assessed everything he had just witnessed and concluded, so you become a danger beast yourself. That's your trump. He nearly scoffed. As I am now, I am not a challenge for the likes of you, but, Stylish added, all I need is some high-quality nutrition to reach the pinnacle of stylishness. The mouth then split the giant torso's midsection, and its arms scooped up the three unconscious people in the clearing. All of them were then tossed into the ghastly abomination's mouth and were eaten by Stylish and his disgusting creation. Naruto continued to watch the following transformation, and he mumbled, just as horrifying as its creator. I may have absorbed another soul as well, but I at least would never do that to someone. Nobody deserves such a fate. He then added almost for himself, honest maybe, but no one else does. The new danger beast, after digesting Stylish's former comrades, now stood over 50 stories tall. It was a full humanoid form now with a head and legs aside from just a simple torso with arms. One of the beast's arms was covered in a greenish metallic alloy, and its cranium had a large protrusion that seemed to contain a bubbling red liquid. The blonde man didn't turn to acknowledge the new presence that had just arrived. He simply instructed them, don't interfere, Susanoo. This bastard is mine to handle. Susanoo's stoic voice replied, I have been instructed by my wielder to assist you in defeating that creature. Sounds like Nagenda's got a new Tigu, he thought with his lips briefly twitching. Then watch me. Only help me if I start to slow down though. This power I'm using has a time limit. If you see me start to wane, then get me the hell out of there. Is that fine with you? He didn't see Susanoo's nod but heard, very well. I can see now that you are currently powerful enough to conquer that thing there on your own. I will observe and only intervene if, as you stated, your power begins to lower below its. I appreciate it, he thanked the Tigu without turning away from his foe. He felt Susanoo's presence leave the area and he yelled, are you ready to die now, Stylish? His sharp hearing overheard the mumble, I'm still not large enough yet. However, if I devour you too, Naruto, then I'll have more strength than anyone else, not even Esdeath could hope to defeat me. You'll be mine. The beast's armored arm flew down from the sky at surprising speeds, intent on crushing Naruto beneath. The blonde leaped into the air and, instead of dodging, kicked the limb with a single front-raising kick. The giant arm was met with so much force in the blow that it was sent flying up and away from its target, making the beast's body step backwards to keep its balance. How? Stylish screamed in disbelief. My arms weigh no less than a full ton. Naruto landed on the ground and spun himself into a forward-leaning posture. His cold red eyes shone beneath the dawn's illumination like the beacons of a demon, while they were partially hidden by his hair. Is that all? He asked in an unimpressed voice. He then dashed to the side and gripped one of the 30-foot pines that Stylish's monstrosity had knocked down. Naruto wrapped his hands on either side of its trunk, twisted his body with enough torque to dislodge a normal person's spinal column, and threw the tree directly at Stylish's barely visible body atop the beast's head. Stylish gaped at the inhuman show of strength, but he managed to recover his wits about him in time to have the armored giant's arm block his head. The tree crashed into the metal with a tremendous thunder that shattered it into thousands of wooden splinters. The tiny pieces of wood rained down upon the world and each stabbed into the ground or other trees. In the brief moment of invisibility he'd created, Naruto sped along the ground to the base of the beast's feet. He then leapt into the air, focused all of his energy into his feet, and drove both of his heels directly into its left kneecap. The metal surrounding its knee immediately shattered, and the giant's leg bent in the opposite way it was meant to. Impossible. Stylish shrieked in disbelief while his beast began to topple. How can one human be this powerful? He screamed as he fell to the ground, crushing acres of trees beneath the humongous body. Naruto phased into existence over the immobile form of his prey. It's over, he spoke down to his victim with a cold voice. Your best is still nothing compared to me, Stylish. He then reached down, wrapped his hand tightly around the man's neck, and forcibly ripped him out from the creature's skull. Stylish's eyes bulged, and he tried to scream in agony as his muscles were pulled apart from the bone, but Naruto's grip didn't allow any sound from the condemned man's throat. Naruto heard numerous sickening snaps, and Stylish's face finally went slack as the amount of pain racking his body overwhelmed his senses and mind. The assassin held the unaware man's limp torso, arms, and head into the air. He then plunged his right hand through Stylish's chest and out the man's back, his heart still gripped in the hand. Naruto crushed his heart in his fist and then pulled his hand out of the now dead man's torso. Pitiful, Naruto scoffed and tossed the carcass down the cliffside. He turned away from the cliffs and closed his eyes, focusing on reining in the power coursing through his veins. The blonde grimaced in pain as his entire body began to ache while the power started to recede. It took a few more minutes of concentration for his features to lose their feral appearance and return to normal. Another minute or two and I'd have been done for, he thought as he exhaled one last time to complete the process. 15 minutes is still my limit, it looks like. He felt numerous presences coming and greeted them, hey, everyone. Itsumi and Lubbock were both gaping at him, Leon and Mine seemed to be impressed if the looks on their faces were anything to go by, Susanoo was still as stoic as he always had been, and Akame looked at him with a relieved, slightly impressed, and calculating look in her eyes. That was awesome. Lubbock and Tatsumi exclaimed at once. So strong. Tatsumi awed with stars in his eyes. The coolest thing ever. Lubbock agreed. Mine tried to look haughty and gave him an obviously backhanded compliment, I suppose you're more than just a pervert after all. Leon whistled in appreciation, walked over to him, wrapped an arm over his shoulder, and told him, not bad there, Root. I suppose I can now live with the ass kicking I got from ya, she winked at him. You're pretty hot shit, ain't ya? I like to think I am, he grinned at her while he forced his fatigue to the back of his mind. Naruto's cerulean eyes then locked with the human-type Tigu's impassive gaze, and Susanoo met his gaze directly for a minute while a soft breeze blew across the early morning light. Naruto tensed momentarily in preparation for a potential battle and kept his eyes on the large Tigu. You the living weapon began evenly. Naruto's eyes sharpened and he thought, so he does remember. Need a towel, Susanoo finished, and Naruto nearly face faulted. Your entire arm is covered in blood. Here, he added and dashed to his side. He pulled a spray bottle and towel out of his robe and then began to clean off Stylish's entrails. Naruto stared in shock until he chuckled to himself, I see now that you haven't changed at all, have you, Susanoo? Then again, if a few hundred years didn't do it, then how would a measly decade do it? Susanoo finished cleaning his arm and then replied after standing once more, I'm afraid I have no recollections of you in my memories of whence I was activated previously. Might I ask who you might be since you seem to know myself in some capacity? Naruto started to answer but was cut off by Lubbock exclaiming, Nagenda-san. You're back. The great wave of wind that made everyone save Naruto and Susanoo cover their eyes descended over the area. The eldest assassin turned and watched as a flying manta then descended from the sky and came to land on the other side of the small clearing. Both of the large beast's riders jumped off from its back and then started walking towards the group. The person following was an average-sized young woman who wore a traveler's cloak, not unlike the one Naruto had been wearing before he encountered Akame. This girl had auburn hair that fell below her back, red eyes that held a jaded sense of mischief that Naruto noticed immediately, and a lollipop stuck in her mouth that her smile rolled around as she strutted over. Naruto forced a small, welcoming grin on his face when he finally made himself look at Nagenda once again. She had cut the long braid he'd once known, and her shining silver hair was cut short. She also now wore a stern business suit-looking choice of attire, with a neckline cut low enough that it showed her modest breasts. The former general's other features made a pang of regret fill his chest. She now had a fully mechanical right arm and an eye patch covered one of her purple eyes. Nagenda stopped about a dozen yards from him and her eye observed her force's appearances. Her gaze met Naruto's last and lingered for a moment. There was a brief flash that went across her eyes that made Naruto feel even worse than he thought he could, but she covered it back up before anyone else might notice. The rebellion's third broke eye contact, turned away from him, and spoke to her followers, it's good to see you all are okay. She then instructed her Tigu, Susanoo, would you please find Stylish's body and return with his Tigu. You also can completely obliterate his remains, as we don't want to leave any possible way for the capital to find them. Of course, the large sentient Tegu accepted and then jumped off of the edge in search of his new objective. She then assured all of the weary-looking members of Night Raid, Stylish's poison should wear off after a little while. If I knew him at all, then his intention was to only capture. If he'd wanted to kill you, then he'd have used a more deadly poison and we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's a relief, Tatsumi sighed as he set both Akame and mine down. His armor then dissipated and he staggered to a knee. I'll be okay, he assured Akame with a smile. I'm just tired is all. I haven't slept that much for the last few days, after all. Leon let Lubbock support himself by leaning him against the corpse of the giant danger beast Naruto had just slain. The green-haired youth then repeated, my barriers are all axe, Nagenda-san. No more hostiles are alive. Nagenda smiled and nodded to the boy, making him grow a content grin. She then looked towards the blonde beauty and Leon told her, I'll be fine. The scent of blood's making me wanna vomit, but Lionel's making sure I'm gonna be okay. Oh, we're gonna need another stash of alcohol after our party last night, she grinned toothily. Akame then started without prompt, I feel no other presences in the area, boss, although I'm certain that if there were then Naruto-sensei would have let us know. I suppose he would have, wouldn't he? Nagenda replied without emotion and turned towards him at last. She and him looked at each other for a tense moment that passed before anyone else could see it. She finally greeted him without anything showing on her face, so you've been alive all this time. Yeah, Naruto responded with a slight nod. I have. It's been a little while, hasn't it? He asked with a forced smile that no one could tell was fake. 4 years and not one letter, she reminded him with an undertone to it that nearly made him wince. And here I thought we were friends, Naruto. Naruto didn't allow himself to look away in shame. Well, I'm here now, aren't I? He tried to say. Well, I don't doubt that Naruto-san has an interesting tale to tell, I'm feeling a little left out, boss, the other girl chimed in with a bell-like voice. Nagenda's eye lingered on him for a brief moment longer before turning and saying, you're right. I had wanted to hold off on introductions until everyone made it to where we're going, but I suppose now's as good a time as any. She then introduced her company to everyone, this is Chelsea, everyone. She and Susanoo are the new recruits that HQ lent us. Hi there. Chelsea greeted everyone with a bright smile. Nice to meet everyone at last. Good to meet you too, Akame replied with a welcoming nod. Nice pajamas, Chelsea commented with a teasing lilt. Does Night Raid usually fight showing off so much? Akame tilted her head in confusion and said, I apologize if my current attire is distracting. I didn't have enough time to change before the attack began and I was made aware of it. I make certain to never wear anything that might hinder my range of movement at all times and my sleepwear succeed in that. Naruto palmed his face while Chelsea just stared at her and everyone else had a bead of sweat run down the back of their heads. Gods, it's even worse than I thought, he mumbled as he ran his hand down his face. What the hell did they do to her that ruined all of my hard work and people skills? And I can only imagine how bad Kurum's gotten now. I see, the auburn-haired young woman responded to her unsteadily. Leon's laugh preceded her telling the new girl, don't sweat it. Akame's just got absolutely no communication skills at all. That's why I'm the one that handles the clients and the infiltrations. Leon's the name by the way. Good to meet you, Leon, Chelsea returned with her teasing smile back in place. You're not worried about losing any coverage, I take it. Leon smirked and told her with absolutely no shame, nope. Besides, it ain't like anyone's getting close to these babies less I want 'em to, she finished while groping both of her. I managed a nice feel last night, Naruto commentated with a large grin, making both Tatsumi and Lubbock gape at him in shock. I was drunk. That didn't count, the buxom beauty huffed while crossing her arms over her breasts with a faint dust of red on her cheeks. It was with his hand, he held out his left hand to Tatsumi and Lubbock as they huddled next to him with reverent looks. Best feeling ever. You really need to show me how you do these things, Lubbock told him. I've never been this jealous of someone before. Boy. Leon shouted at the group of men. Don't be talking so it's fine so long as you're not around. Naruto wryly grinned. Of course, Leon harumphed. And it had better have been. There ain't a pair out there better mine. Mine used Pumpkin as a crutch and made her way over to Nagenda and Chelsea. Sorry about the group of imbeciles back there, she apologized with a jab over her shoulder. Welcome to the team though. We've really needed another rational woman around now that the blonde bastard's here. Ouch. Naruto suddenly commented right behind the pink-haired girl, making her and Chelsea jump. Was that for the whole flatty comment? Nagenda noticed Chelsea's giggling along with mine's twitching eyebrow and stepped in before the situation could escalate. When did you arrive, Naruto? He stepped out of mine's reach and replied, the capital or Night Raid. Both. About a week ago I started renting a room in the slums, he informed her. I only ran into Leon a couple of days ago and she brought a cane the next time. I found your little hideaway yesterday. I see. Najenda then asked, so then you've reconsidered your answer? You're willing to join the revolution at last? Nope, he answered flatly, making everyone look at him oddly. My answer's still the same, and I'd actually like to add a few more insults I've come up with the next time I meet the bastard. But night raids in the revolution, Naruto, Tatsumi said to him. If you're in night raid then you're a part of the revolution, it's just that simple. That's why I'm not joining night raid, kid, he informed them all. Najenda gave a morose chuckle and said, I see. You're going to try and take advantage. Finish that and I'll remove your tongue, the assassin seethed with enough fury in his eyes at the accusation that it made her stop in shock. I would never do that to you, Najenda. Do you truly think so little of me now? I told you then and I remind you now. I respect you far, far too much to ever even consider doing such a thing. What I intend on doing is working with you, he finally revealed. A partnership of sorts. I won't ever work under that fucker, but I'm willing to help Night Raid for now. I'll help you find more targets and clients as well as take care of some of the more impossible jobs myself. We'll split the money on the contracts I'm involved with and determine the percentages between myself and you, Najenda. That being said, I also will act without informing all of you if I feel like a target can't wait for a contract to be taken out on. So you're basically an independent contractor then, Chelsea pieced together quickly. You're willing to work with us, but you also want to have enough autonomy to where you can do what you want and kill whoever you feel deserves it. Partially, he admitted with a reluctant nod at his demands being put in such a way that he was painted as the bad guy, even if it was slightly true how she put it. I'm willing to tell you, Najenda, of when and on who I intend to move on, and you can choose to tell everyone else if you so wish. This way you, at least, will know I'm not going after average douch for him insulting my haircut or something along those lines. It also gives you the opportunity to tell me anything I may not know about them. Najenda picked up on the hidden message and nodded in agreement, I can agree to that. There are some official targets we can't kill just yet. Naruto held up a hand to stop her and added, and to show that I'm not going to just be some freeloader bumming off of your kindness, I'm willing to do something I haven't done in years. I'm willing to take these so-called assassins of yours and turn them into real assassins. Najenda saw his smirk and her eye widened in surprise. You're going to instruct again? She asked incredulously. Yep. He grinned and he was then tackled to the ground in a hug from Akame. His former student sat on his stomach, looked directly into his eyes and asked him, do you really mean it this time? Are you going to become my sensei again? Naruto sat up and set a hand atop her head. Yeah, he told her while petting her scalp. But not just yours, I'm going to teach everyone here a few of my tricks. You all may be good, but if you lot tried to take on the royal guard as you are now you'd get slaughtered, no two ways about it. I'm going to whip everyone here into what I deem strong. Akame got off of him looking like she wanted to whoop in joy. A fair assessment, Chelsea murmured under her breath. Tatsumi was immediately at his side, looking up at him with stars in his eyes once more. The boy asked eagerly, so does that mean you'll teach me how to move as fast as you and take down something like that? Naruto looked over at the gigantic corpse and told him, I can make you strong enough to take down something on par with that, but you won't be able to do it as quick as I did. Tatsumi sulked a little at hearing that and mumbled, why not? Because I tapped into a power that only I have, kid, he answered. You mean like a Tegu? Naruto hesitated to answer that, and Najenda's sharp gaze was immediately upon him again, searching for answers. He eventually offered, yes and no. I'll tell you all about it later though, he stopped them before anyone could ask him about his meaning. Right now all I wanna do is find a nice comfy bed and go to sleep for a bit cause of this damned headache I've got now. That sounds like a pretty intriguing tale, Naruto, Najenda observed with a cunning look. Oh, it is, he replied offhandedly. He then dusted himself off and changed the subject, so what about we're all going someplace? Najenda was prevented from answering by a large crash kicking up dust directly between her and the whiskered man. The dust cleared and Susanu's deep voice intoned, I have succeeded in my mission, master. He then tossed Stylish's glove-looking Tegu to her and finished, I apologize for any delay. The body had landed in a river and I was forced to hunt it down over a kilometer away. The corpse is now in the stomachs of 17 different danger beasts. Good work, Susanu, his wielder complimented while she put Perfector in the bag she was carrying over her shoulder. She then addressed everyone, well then, I think it's time to get going. Everyone hop on the manta so we can get moving. Where are we going, boss? Tatsumi asked her as he helped mine up onto the beast's back. Najenda observed the boy and told them all, as Naruto just stated, we all need some time to refine our abilities. You especially, Tatsumi, since you just got in Cursio a week ago. The green-eyed youth looked bashfully down at his lap at her words, and she continued, this attack tonight also means that we'll need to relocate the base, just in case Stylish could have done any number of things once he located us. During the time it will take for the revolution's resources to relocate us, we'll focus on getting stronger both individually and as a group. I'm expecting us to have a full-out battle with the Uyghurs soon, and I want to make certain that we'll be prepared for war. Lubbock then queried, so who's going to handle our contracts while we're gone? I may not like the woman, their leader replied, but Esdeath always takes whatever mission she's charged with seriously. Well, the worst of the worst will have to wait for our return. Esdeath and her Uyghurs will be more than enough to handle the most obvious trash that are too idiotic or prideful to hide their escapades from the public eye. Naruto added, I've also still got a few former contacts of mine that'll gather information while I'm away. All I need to do is meet with them and clarify their new roles while we're out and about. Legenda regarded him with an arched eyebrow at hearing this news. She asked him skeptically, you still have contacts that neither myself nor Esdeath knew about? I did keep some secrets, he shrugged uncaringly. A few of them I've found are already in your rather impressive spy network, Legenda, but I also added a few more in the time I've been here. The homeless and the orphan make for great observers because nobody generally notices them even if they're right next to them. Not bad, the revolutionary smirked at him. And all you'd lose is a few gold pieces you likely have already pilfered from some unaware noble, am I right? Aw shucks. You're making me blush here. Well, it's about time I managed to. Are you still mad about that business? 4 years is a long time. Not long enough. You're still mad. Why, whatever gave you that impression? The cold shoulder you gave me earlier seemed like a pretty good sign. It appears your mastery of reading body language hasn't diminished. Yep. Still pissed. A sharp whistle in the air preceded a rock colliding with his forehead, making him shout in pain. Alright, who threw it? He demanded with his forehead pulsing red. Leone whistled innocently with her hands under her legs atop the manta. She also never met eyes with him. By I oughta, Naruto growled. Legenda chuckled in amusement and then stopped the situation from escalating further. Whoever threw it was right, though, Naruto, she told him with noticeable mirth in her eye. We're the only ones not ready to go yet. Come on. She then turned and began to walk to the large flying manta. I'm afraid I won't be joining you just yet, he told her, making her stop. I've still got a few meetings that I have to take care of before I can go off radar again. Legenda didn't turn back to him and she replied, I see. I'm guessing you'll be showing yourself to her, won't you? And fool you, he noted to himself with a soft grin. I'm relatively certain she knows I'm back anyway, Legenda. I've also got to clear up some unfinished business we have together. The silver-haired woman didn't initially respond to his words. After a breeze ruffled her short hair slightly she called out, Chelsea, please accompany Naruto. The auburn-haired young woman rolled her lollipop in her mouth, looking at the two oddly. Not that I mind, she answered, but might I ask why me? You know the coordinates of where we're going to be, Legenda clarified, and she accepted her orders with a nod. You're still fresh since you've been off mission for a week unlike nearly everyone else. I also don't want Naruto to do something too stupid on his own again. Like disappear? He nearly asked her but held it in. Instead he playfully pouted, I can handle myself, but I did kinda forget to ask where it was I'd rendezvous with you guys. Chelsea climbed down from the manta and said to the other night raid members, see you guys in a day or two. She then started walking towards Naruto and Legenda began moving towards the flying manta. Legenda, Naruto called out to her one last time. One last thing before you go, and this one's not negotiable. She gripped Lubbock's offered hand and replied over her shoulder, yes. When we all eventually make our move on Honest, the assassin declared evenly, Honest is mine. Got it. The corner of Legenda's lips twitched and she nodded once to his demand. She then climbed up onto her beast and all the night raid members save Chelsea took off into the sky. Chelsea's half smirk was on her face and she stated after everyone else had left, you and her have a history. Who do you think got her promoted to a general's rank at only 16? He asked her rhetorically. She was damn good, but not that amazing back then. There's more to that story, she observed, but I won't pry. It's not really my business so long as it doesn't interfere with the jobs. So, you're this greatest assassin the capital ever produced I keep being compared to? She asked. Naruto snorted and told her, if they're saying that then they've forgotten just exactly who I am. I've heard of you too, Lady Gaia, but you're nowhere near my level yet. Gaia Foundation will get you out of a bunch of jams, but it fails miserably against people like me. Oh? The auburn-haired young woman arched an eyebrow at him. And how might that be? Your scent doesn't change, he informed her matter-of-factly. Admittedly, I'm special in that my nose is on par with a fox's, but if your target has any loyal dog or similar pet, you're boned hard. Chelsea chuckled once in amusement and countered, they would need to have my scent beforehand for that to work though. Fair point, he conceded to her. Naruto then turned and began walking into the woods towards the capital. Let's get going, Chelsea. We're burning daylight already. Right behind you. Is that everyone now? Chelsea asked him as he walked over to her. Just one more visit, Naruto answered her and continued walking past her. She fell into step next to him as they both moved through the slums and exited out onto Main Street. Chelsea gave him an inquisitive look once they turned off the crowded street and into an alley, but received no verbal recognition. They eventually came to a stop at a relatively plain-looking ice cream shop, and Naruto spoke to his fellow assassin, "Stay here." "Might I ask why?" The auburn-haired young woman asked with a slightly annoyed look. "You've let me observe all of your meetings so far. What's so different about this one?" "This one's personal," he thought, but didn't let it show. Instead he replied, "Who I'm meeting this time is one of Night Raid's targets, and I don't want you to be found out so soon after arriving in the capital." Chelsea rolled her lollipop to the other side of her mouth, her face contemplating his words. After a minute she asked, "Does this person have a nose as good as yours?" "No," he answered her immediately. "It's exceptional for a human, but her nose isn't quite as sharp as mine." "Good," she nodded, looking pleased. Chelsea then was covered in a cloud of smoke that appeared seemingly out of nowhere, and where her cloaked form had just been standing there now was an adorable brown kitten. Naruto rolled his eyes after he figured out her idea. "I suppose it won't matter much since I planned on telling all of this to Agenda anyway," he figured while Cat Chelsea pawed at his leg and meowed in impatience. Yeah. I got it," he drawled as he extended a palm and held it out for the feline to jump in. Chelsea climbed into his hand and he thought while she went up the length of his arm and settled down on his shoulder, "I suppose her being there will get an agenda off my case about this as well. She'll be able to confirm that nothing happened for me." Naruto then walked through the entrance and found that the store was empty save for a single guest and the shop's owner. He absently noted to himself that it was still the same owner that he recalled, and he took a seat directly behind the lone other patron. The shivering man collected his order and hurriedly fled the area. "So, the azure-haired beauty behind him started, you're really alive after all." "I am," he told her. The owner gave him his order and scampered away. Naruto took one spoonful of the orange sherbet, ate it, and mused aloud, "Still the best in the capital, isn't it, Esdeath?" Esdeath smiled behind him and said, "I make a trip here at least once a week when I'm in the capital." "You did know your food, Naruto." The cat on his shoulder mewled and he let her lick some ice cream off of his finger. The whiskered man stroked Chelsea's fur and he said, "And you are still as cold as your dessert." "You told me to never change, after all," she smirked. Naruto snorted, "Like you ever listened to anything I ever said anyway." "True," Esdeath accepted with a nod. She enjoyed another spoonful of her favorite ice cream and teased slightly, "Then again, nothing but hot air ever seemed to come out of your mouth." "Ouch," he grinned at the banter he remembered returning. "That one hurt. The truth is called harsh for a reason." Naruto openly laughed so loud at that it startled Chelsea so much she hissed at him. Sorry, girl," he apologized and petted her to get her to calm down. "It's just been too long since I heard her sharp wit. I couldn't help myself." Chelsea arched her back like how a cat really would at his ministrations, and Naruto let out a chuckle. His semi-amused state fled though when Esdeath's cool voice told him, "You are aware of my current position, are you not?" "I am," he responded calmly, and Chelsea tensed up on his shoulder in preparation to make an escape if need be. He let his companion leap off of his shoulder and into his hands, while he told his conversation partner, "It's because I know that I knew it would be safe to meet you like this." "Oh?" Esdeath queried while Cat Chelsea gave him a curious look. "You're the head of the Jaegers," the blonde man explained. "That means that your duty is to protect the capital from their enemies within like Night Raid. You are sadistic beyond measure, Esdeath, and you take great pleasure in destruction. However, you are also a general whom takes her charged missions very seriously and works within the provided parameters meticulously, even though you take liberties in a few loopholes honest leaves for you." "Your point?" "You would be in direct violation of your duties if you engaged me here and now," Naruto claimed. "Our battle 2 years ago wiped an entire small mountain range off the map. That was when both of us were still new to our abilities. Now, with both of us now having 2 full years to refine and tune our skills, we're both exponentially more powerful, so if we fought now we'd obliterate the entire capital, and then some, Esdeath. And all of that even then still wouldn't guarantee that you would kill me, so I know you can't fight me here and now." A brief time passed in silence with Chelsea looking up at him in shock, a little melting ice cream dripping off of her whiskers. Esdeath chuckled, "Indeed. Sharp as always, Naruto. I see 2 years of being dead didn't dull your mind at all." "Honest taught me how the game worked," he reminded her. "A little too well it seems," she smirked. Esdeath set her empty bowl and spoon down and then asked him, "Were you the man at the tournament?" "Yes," he didn't even bother denying it or attempting to be an ass and make her get extremely specific if he wanted. "Were you honest then?" was that your sole reason for wishing to compete? The blonde man smiled down at his ice cream and responded, it wasn't my only reason, but it was a big one. You can't deny that it would have been one hell of a way to kick Honest's door down and tell him that I'm back. Esdeath laughed slightly to herself and observed, I see your flair for the dramatic is still nearly as large as your ego. I never said I didn't have either. They're just not quite as big as your head. Are you saying I'm smart now? 'Cause you know you're right. Esdeath shook her head with a slight smile on her face. You are truly the same, incomprehensible man as when we first met, Naruto. You wouldn't say that if you knew me before then, he thought, and his face lost its humor. Chelsea looked at him curiously at seeing his look and he then asked Esdeath seriously, you've guessed my purpose for seeing you, I take it. Esdeath scoffed, don't insult me. The instant you entered the shop I knew why you came. This is, as Wave would call it, your shot across the bow. You're merely letting me know your intentions and giving me a warning. It is, he confirmed. Esdeath more stated than asked him, so I take it you will join forces with Negenda and one of your former students, then? You are aware that your other favorite is under my command, correct? Naruto nodded once, yes to both of those. She still despises you. The assassin grimaced and the kitten tilted her head in his direction. I know, he responded with a pained voice. And I doubt she'd believe me now even if I tried to explain things to her. She has never once even mentioned you, Esdeath informed him, making him feel even worse. If it is any consolation, I believe that Wave is beginning to chip away at her. I hear that he's a good kid, Naruto sighed in resignation. Tatsumi had nothing but praise for him. Chelsea hissed angrily at him and bore her fangs, while Esdeath froze at hearing his words. The cat attempted to scratch him, but Naruto cowed her with a strong grip on the scruff of her neck and a steely gaze that promised pain. Tatsumi? Esdeath then whirled around in her seat, gripped Naruto's shoulders so tight he felt her nails dig into him and twisted him around so that they met eyes at long last. You know where he is. Tell me. Where is he? Where is Tatsumi? Did he really join the revolution? He is out of your reach, the cerulean-eyed assassin told her evenly, not allowing the pain at seeing her panicky eyes show on his face. The kid is also your enemy so long as you stay with Honest. Tatsumi is still young, so he can still be protected even if he did join the rebels, she responded. So long as he allies with me then Honest won't do a thing to him. He won't ever join the Empire, Esdeath, Naruto smirked at her. His two best friends were captured, tortured, and killed by a set of particularly nasty nobles that Night Raid killed off a little while ago, and that's not even including the dire straits his home village is in because of Honest's ridiculous taxes. They're all weak then, she growled. He will see it for himself soon enough, the one law of this world. The strong devour the weak. Still clinging to daddy's outdated and primitive ideology, I see, he mused aloud. You're the naive one, Esdeath. The world is not so simple as your foolish father attempted to make it out to be. The weak are killed by the strong, this is how it always has been and always shall be, Esdeath informed him with steel behind her eyes. The wolf eats the deer because it is the mightier. I crush armies under heel because I am simply the stronger. Dress it up however you wish, Naruto, those facts will never change no matter what. The two people more akin to forces of nature than humans continued their stare down until the both of them smirked and said to each other simultaneously, you're still as stubborn as you were. Esdeath loosened her grip and let him go with a soft smile on her face. It is a shame that we must remain enemies, Naruto, she said to him. Why not return to your former post? The current imbecile occupying it is utterly incompetent, so we might fight side by side once more and crush this pitiable revolution with unstoppable force. Tempting offer, but I'll have to decline, he refused flatly, eliciting a frown from her. I will be the one that puts a blade through Honest for all that he did to me and my own. Then we shall remain enemies then, she concluded. We shall. Esdeath paused for a minute before she used the card Naruto never expected her to bring up on her own, do you no longer claim to love me then? Naruto's chest ached at hearing her unintentional accusation, but he didn't let it show on his face or through his body language. He took in a deep breath and reiterated, I still love you, Esdeath, from the bottom of my heart, but you still don't understand just what I mean when I say that. No, she denied softly with a shake of her head. She placed a hand over her heart and claimed, ever since I met Tatsumi I believe that I finally understand just what love is, Naruto. It is a desperate longing to be with the one that belongs to you, a yearning to have them with you and at your side at all times. Tatsumi has only been away from me for not even a full day, yet my chest hurt so much that not even my most brutal torture methods have helped to heal it. I think I'm beginning to comprehend what you said you felt for me. Esdeath, Naruto informed her, that's not love. But. That's nothing more than mere affection, he told her evenly, making her stop. Love is something that runs so much deeper that your everything is in crippling agony whenever you are unable to be with the one you love. As you are, Esdeath, you will never be able to have an inkling as to what my feelings for you are. Love is the inexplicable joy you feel when you see them. Love is wishing to see the one you care for succeed and you work tirelessly to watch their dreams come true at long last so you can celebrate with them. Love is wanting, above all else, them to be happy even if they're happier without you there. Love, Esdeath, completely consumes all there is to you all the way down to your very soul and never lets go. You weren't wrong when you called love a disease, Esdeath, because it's one that you can never be rid of unless you cut out your own heart. You can't love Tatsumi as you are, Esdeath, because of one simple fact. You're too selfish. To you, any sacrifice on your part is so ludicrous that it's utterly foolish to even consider. He then finished with a small hitch in his voice, the proof that you love someone, truly love a person, is being willing to give up everything for them. Both Esdeath and Chelsea looked at him with wide, stunned eyes after hearing his words. The faux feline managed to shake off his words and meowed at him. He then reached down and picked her off of the table. Chelsea settled on his shoulder and nuzzled her head on his cheek while her throat rumbled in a deep comforting purr. "And you want to know the really funny part?" Naruto asked rhetorically as he stood up from his stool and turned away from Esdeath. "Even as messed up as you are, I know you're actually capable of feeling that way. It just terrifies you." The blue-eyed woman finally managed to shake herself out of her stupor and glared at him heatedly while she vehemently denied the notion. "I am scared of nothing, Naruto." "No?" He chuckled ruefully. "We both know what happened that night so long ago, Esdeath. Don't try and tell me that didn't terrify you, I saw it in your eyes." Esdeath was silent at his words and he continued on, "I did as you wished because I honestly believed all you needed was a little time to come to grips with what happened, but Honest's machinations ruined that for us." Once Naruto reached the doorway, Esdeath asked him calmly, "If you really believe everything you have just said, then why are you doing all of this? Why choose to fight the person you claim to care so deeply for when you know they may well be the one that ends you?" "Because a man can only bear so much heartache," he whispered. "We will remain enemies so long as you stand between me and Honest, Esdeath, and I will remove any obstacles standing between him and I with lethal force if need be." Esdeath's eyes went icy at hearing his words and she hissed, "Do not presume that you may kill me at any time you choose, Naruto. And don't you think that I am incapable of doing the deed, Esdeath," he growled. "We both know which of us was the true victor 2 years ago, but this time I won't miss." "Neither will I," Esdeath promised in the same cold voice. Naruto flicked a pair of gold coins on the counter as he passed by and left the building. He traveled out of the capital slowly, letting himself finally come to grips with the cumulative effects his actions will have. The cat perched on his shoulder leapt to the forest floor and was covered by a sudden thick smoke. "Well, that was certainly interesting," Chelsea admitted as the smoke parted. "Although you know I'll have to report that you just probably compromised one of our members' identities to the enemy." "Go ahead," he shrugged uncaringly. "I was going to tell Najenda everything anyway." "Even the whole what is love bit?" she slightly teased. "Don't hurt me," he grinned at her. "I was going to leave out the poetic parts, but you can include them if you want. It's not like my feelings for her are an unknown anymore." Chelsea held her hands behind her lower back and she leaned forward slightly and asked him, "So are you going to fill me in on what your purpose to giving up the fact that you're still alive or not?" "She and I already encountered each other while I was disguised," he answered while they walked, "but she knows my presence so well that it'd be impossible for her to not know that it was me. All I did today was confirm something that she already knew. Except now she'll report it to the minister," the young woman informed him. "They'll have your poster back up before you can even blink after that." The blonde chuckled once and scolded her, "I know Esdeath far better than that, and right now she doesn't want to have to try and chase me down. She won't tell Honest, but she'll warn the Yuggers about me so that they know to flee if they ever encounter me without her around." Esdeath has always had a soft spot for those under her command, though she'd never admitted. Chelsea hummed thoughtfully. "I've read every file that's on the general, but I suppose personal experience trumps that." "Good." Naruto then asked her, "So where are we headed now?" What if Juubi Naruto and Akame ga kill end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.